It is 8:32, and it's time to begin this meeting. With the controversial issues we have this morning, I think it is especially important that we begin with prayer. Jehu Hernandez, if you would come forward and get us started, I will ask you all to rise as you are able. Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful to you for giving us a good start to our day today. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity we have to gather and to conduct city business. Lord, I thank you for all the men and women who work so hard and give of their time and energy and their expertise to help to guide our city. And I pray that you would grant them wisdom and direction to move our city forward, to make the best decisions for our citizens, for our businesses, and just to make the decisions that would position our city in a place that would receive your maximum blessing. So grant your blessing and your direction to each one of these city council members, the city staff, the citizens that are here to provide their input as well. Father, we want to do all things to honor and glorify your name. This is our prayer, and we ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Let's get a picture here, Jay. Thank you. And if I could have Mr. Ray Paulos Jr. and Mr. Caden Bennett come forward. And both of these young men are 10th graders at Bonham Elementary, parents of Ray and Christine Russell, and we are so glad to have you gentlemen with us this morning. And they will allow me to assist them with the pledge. Let's get it. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee. Texas, one state, under God, indivisible. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, sir. Let's get a picture here. We need a minute. So much. We do have one proclamation recognition this morning, recognizing the Concho Valley Gardeners Water Smart Landscape of the Month program. Do I have anyone in the audience that is with the Concho Valley Master Gardeners Water Smart Landscape? Good morning, ma'am. It is very good to have you this morning. Let me read this. The Concho Valley Masters Gardeners continue to do their part to help San Angelo be water smart. The Water Smart Landscape of the Month program is the most recent example of that. The Master Gardeners are one of the programs of the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service, and each month, from April through September, the Master Gardeners showcase a landscape that is both beautiful and conservation conscious. Judges choose winners based on the use of drought-tolerant plants and the employment of other water conservation measures, such as rainwater harvesting, drip irrigation, and the use of mulch. Nominating yourself or a neighbor is easy. Just visit txmg.org/Concho Valley and fill out a short online form. Winners will be recognized with a sign posted in their front yard. They are also rewarded with a $50 gift card to a local nursery. For the month of July, the Master Gardeners recognize Christina and Anthony Wilson, whose Southland home is minimized turf in favor of a beautiful desert landscape. The Wilsons also have drip irrigation and a rainwater harvesting system with 2,500 gallons of capacity. And the rainwater they capture is used to irrigate their trees. Therefore, I, Dwayne Morrison, the mayor of the city of San Angelo, on behalf of the city council, do hereby recognize and applaud the Concho Valley Master Gardeners for their achievements and positive determination to make a difference in our community. Congratulations, ma'am. And I will invite you.
Thank you so much. My name is Allison Watkins. I'm the county horticulture extension agent. And Master Gardeners, they're a terrific group that just want to help the community. And I think this is a great way to help educate how yards can be beautiful while still saving water, which is such an important resource for us. So thank you so much for this recognition. We really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Wilson, you have
Well, we're We are really honored to have received this award, and it's really important, this fantastic program, to help highlight how yards can be beautiful as well as water efficient. We live in a desert, so water is our most precious resource, and we want to conserve it, so we have lakes and, and water to pass along to our children. So thank you very much.
Part of our meeting in which we ask for and allow and invite public comment, whether pro or con or good or bad. If you want to cuss us or if you want to. This is where we allow public comment. We invite your comments, good or bad. You can cuss us or you can praise us. This is your opportunity. I will ask you to come to the microphone, state your name. Let me read the legalities here and we will get this started. Items or issues that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, begin by stating their name and limit remarks to less than 5 minutes. Council members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The council takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those items. So, if you have anything you want to address the city council with that is not on the agenda, this is your opportunity. I invite you to come to the front. State your name, and you've got 3 to 5. You going to start us out, Craig?
Yep.
Okay. I need to set the timer.
Oh, if you choose. It says 3, you said 5, so I'm not going to watch that.
Go ahead.
My name's Craig Myers, and you wonder why I've invited all these people here today. It's very important. I've been asked by St. Paul Baptist Church in Blackshear neighborhood to bring an issue to your attention. And to set a context, I wish that all of you could have been down in Austin a couple of weeks ago with Bob Salas and myself, because we met with the State Board of Housing, and Bob had heard from the developer of the project you guys had approved for tax credit request. That was a perfect project for the perfect place, and all of a sudden he got a letter that said that they were going to, the staff was going to request denial of it, out of the blue. And so he asked me if I'd go down there and we'd talk, because we'd been there together for 4 or 5 times before. And the environmental engineer for the company and us went down there. And in all the time we've been down there, we've seen hundreds and hundreds of proposals, and hardly ever do they overturn the requests and proposals of their staff. And so we knew we had an uphill battle. The engineer cut down all of their environmental complaints because they were bogus, but they still were really not going to turn it down until we did something that you guys ought to be very proud of. We gave them the facts about what's happening in San Angelo. There were 3 of them who had been on the board when we had come before for the NOAA project. And we told them that this is a place, and we showed them the hard data that had taken 4 blighted areas and turned them into developing areas and housing in terms of infrastructure. There's still areas, even blocks, where there are, bad houses, but no blight, and it had been done with all the collaboration of the city and citizens and not-for-profits and banks and tens of thousands of volunteer hours, and that this project was going to be something that could not fail because of everything that had gone before to provide the environment for it to succeed in, and in turn, it was going to be a stimulus for continued kinds of success. And they turned from overwhelmingly being against it to approving it, which is to say that what you have done was recognized by the chair of the board as something he said was exceptional that's happening here in San Angelo. And then one other side effect to this, as a part of this context, was that people like to forget about it, but a little over 10 years ago, this city was suffering the same kind of conflict and tension that we see all over the country. A couple of deaths of minority young people caused protests, counter-protests, terrible letters to the editor, ranger investigations and lots of suspicion, and a race task force was put into place to try to deal with this. But more important than the task force was the work that was done on revitalization that draw together people who are from different neighborhoods, different churches, to create an environment of people working side by side, hand to hand, doing grunt work, talking about problems, to have a situation where we don't hear that kind of stuff here. We've got our problems. We've got issues still to settle. So with that as a context, we cannot afford to allow any of the residue of discrimination in the past, intentional or it's just been left alone, to continue to exist. Just to make sure that I had my information right, I drove around San Angelo and went around to every church I could see, particularly those in more affluent areas that are in white areas. Not one of them was in violation of the zoning issue that says nobody can sell alcohol within 300 feet of a school or a church. Well, for decades, right across the street, not 300 feet, 50 feet, door to door, these people have endured a bar that had been operating, been left alone, grandfathered. I don't know what the deal is. Recently, it got so bad that not only were people going out of their church to do their business faced with obscene comments, with violence, all kinds of stuff, there was a murder right across the street. It closed down. So problem solved, not in doubt. There's a new owner who's put up a sign that says neighborhood pub. I've never known a pub that exists to sell lettuce wraps. They sell alcohol, and there's going to be an effort to reestablish a bar in that area. And the city, we're asking to do the research on why in the world this was allowed to exist so long, the nuances of grandfathering, which continue to sort of stretch things so that businesses that are doing the same kind of business can stay in place, that they figure out what is going to be required when that application for a license comes around, so that there will never, no time, you can go to that church and say, we guarantee you there will never be a repeat of what they have endured, the indignities they've endured for all this time. So we ask you to do that, to research everything, to go to them, to reassure them that you are representing them like every other church in town. One last thing, the reason I was asking.
Come on, we've got a time limit this morning. We've got a lot of things to do.
I know it, but I'm going to do one thing, and that is I was asked to do this because we have a long relationship, and they were without a pastor. I'd like to introduce you to the new pastor who is at St. Paul Baptist Church, Charles Davis, who probably will be speaking to you about this issue if it needs to be speaking to before. Charles?
Welcome, sir. How you doing? Everything's great.
Good. My name is Charles Davis, and I am the pastor of St. Paul. The first thing I'd like to say is do not compare me with the former pastor. I'm not him. I've been in this city for 3 weeks, but every day I look across the street and I see a bar. And if you could show me one church in this city other than St. Paul that has a bar across the street from the church, then I'll stop talking. Can anybody show that to me? Not only is the bar across the street, but the people that go to the bar disrespect the church. They park in our parking lot, they park in the handicap signs, and when you mention something to them, they say, well, the church is closed. The church might be closed, but the sign says handicap. The church might be closed, but that's God's house. And I'm not going to allow it. And if I have to do it by myself through prayer and hard work, then that's what I'll do. But I refuse to have a bar across the street from God's house and God's house be disrespected. I don't think any one of you go to church and then there's a bar across the street from your church. So why should it be across the street from the church that I pastor? Because it's a black neighborhood? Because it's a poor neighborhood? It's still God's house. And if none of you know where St. Paul Baptist Church is, you ought to drive by and see it. It's a beautiful church. It's 100 years old. And I asked God, why did you send me here? why me, Lord? And he said, why not you? Yeah. I don't think anybody in this room would want their kids to look at a bar across the street from your church. The location? Huh? The location of the church? It's on Martin Luther King Boulevard. Oh, my voice is loud.
We're being televised.
Not a problem. And so I'm just asking for the city's support. I don't want to do this by myself, but I have a mandate, and that mandate is go ye therefore and minister to people. I was very nice. I've been very nice. And I'm going to still be nice. But what I'm asking is I'm asking the city to look at the issue, and the issue is you have a bar across the street from a church, and they claim that they were going to have a game room. I've never seen a game room named Friendly Pub. The word pub is nothing but another word for bar. You go to Ireland and they say pub. You go to England, they say pub. Pub means bar. That's all I have to say. And I understand that you're my representative.
Yes, sir, I am.
Yes, ma'am. Well, we're going to talk.
That's fine. We will.
Yeah. I need your help. And I've already talked to the deacons in the church, and I told them that one man can't do this. And so the next time I come, I'm not coming by myself. I'm coming with the church. Yeah, I'm coming with the church. Because I believe that the more people come, the more you'll see. Instead of letting it ride already. Somebody's already killed there. But yet they allowed it to be reopened. Oh, I'm getting ready to finish. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Mosa Peasy, Animal Shelter Advisory Board. I just want to take a few minutes this morning to let you all know that there are just some really wonderful things happening at our animal shelter, and I wanted to share some of the highlights with you. We have gone 5 months at our shelter, 5 consecutive months, without euthanizing one single adoptable animal. And this is huge, and I'm very proud of this. There's been a lot of work that has gone into this, and for our city, it's something that we all should be very proud of. A couple of weekends ago, we had a big adoption event, and it yielded 44 pets finding their forever homes. Again, something I'm really proud of. It took a lot of work to pull that together, and staff did a really great job. Because of all these really great things that are happening at our animal shelter, the Animal Shelter Advisory Board really felt like the timing was right for us to really look at some long-term goals and objectives for our shelter. So we have been meeting, and we have come up with some really exciting things. I wanted to just kind of share with you some of the highlights. So over the next 5 years, it is our goal for our shelter to become a no-kill shelter. And this is huge. As you know, we've had euthanasia rates up into the 80%. So for us to be even having the dream of being no-kill is just phenomenal, and something, again, that I'm very proud to be a part of. In order to be a no-kill, what that means is we save 90% of the animals that come into the shelter. Being a municipal shelter, we will never have a 100% save rate. That is just not reasonable. We have the responsibility to this community to humanely euthanize severely sick, injured, feral animals, etc. So we do believe that a 90% save rate, though, is something that we can work for and that we can achieve in this city. 2 big things have to happen for that to occur. One of them is a reduce in our intake numbers and an increase in our adoption numbers. The first one, the reducing the intake, that will definitely be our biggest challenge because that's on the community to step up and be responsible. And so I did want to take this opportunity to thank all of you who supported our spay and neuter ordinance, because without that ordinance, this dream would not even be possible. It is absolutely the cornerstone of us becoming a no-kill shelter, is having that ordinance in place. So I would like to thank you all for for giving that to us and allowing us to build upon that. A couple of the other main goals that we have for 5 years is we would like to move into a more centrally located facility, and we would like to be properly staffed. Really, it is animal control officers that we are lacking, and in order for us to be a no-kill facility, those animal control officers will be an integral part of enforcing those ordinances and helping educate the community so that we can get there. So again, good things happening. I know that this board, the Animal Shelter Board, really wants to have an open dialogue with all of you. So please feel free to, contact us, ask us any questions, concerns. It's going to take a lot of work for us to achieve these goals, but I really do believe working together that we can get there. We've got some good management in place out at the shelter with James Flores and staff, and I know that we can get there, and I think that we'll look back 5 years from now and just be thrilled at everything that we have accomplished. So thank you all.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Valenzuela. Ryan Kramer, Superintendent of Fleet Services. I just wanted to make everyone aware of, if they haven't heard, that our surplus vehicle and equipment auction is now active and online, ready for bid. You can find the website to go to on the city's website. Look for the Fleet Services tab or portal. The website is reneebates.com, RENEBATES, or they're welcome to call our office and we'll help direct them in the right path to get registered and get bidding on some items. A little over 100 items this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next. Line forms at the front. If there is no further public comment, then we will call an end to this part of our agenda item. We will move on now to our consent agenda item. Consent agenda items look like we have A through K. I'll start with you, Mrs. Farmer. If you have anything that you would like to pull from the consent and place on the regular for discussion, this is your opportunity. Or if you have anything, any statements or anything you need to say, go.
Public comments. I just want to remind everyone that the Porch to Plains Alliance affiliation is having their annual conference here in San Angelo, September 13th, 14th, and 15th. If you have not received your registration, see the city manager after the meeting, and he'll be happy to get you signed up. As far as the consent agenda, I have nothing to pull.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Carter.
No comment and nothing to pull.
Thank you, sir. Lane is a new daddy, by the way. I think 3 days ago. And that is something of importance.
She sent me a picture on the way here, and I almost pulled around and went back home.
Ms. Lucy.
No comment and nothing to pull.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Thomas.
No comment, nothing to pull.
Mr. Self.
I have nothing.
Mr. Richardson.
I'd like to pull E and F.
E and F?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I have nothing to pull, but I do have an announcement. We were in Austin last week and spoke to the Texas Board of Nursing. And we were on a fast track, and we approached the Texas Board of Nursing. We had Shannon Hospital, we had Howard College, representatives from the city, from COSA DC, from the Workforce Development. And what we were able to do in record time with a unanimous vote was to get a nursing program at Howard College. Howard College has offered nursing, but it's been at the Big Spring campus. We are now offering a standalone nursing program at Howard College, which will be able to teach an LVN in 2 years and to go from an LVN to an RN in an additional year. We are authorized to start taking students this fall. We're authorized 60 students. The Development Corporation of San Angelo put $75,000 into this, and the Workforce Commission put $75,000 into this, which gives us $150,000 of seed money to get this thing started, which will hire the teachers, get the equipment, and we will be able, this is for 2 years, at which time we will be able to graduate our first group of nurses from Howard College in San Angelo. With a shortage of about 400 nurses in the Concho Valley, and about 4,000 statewide. So this is not only good for Howard, this is good for San Angelo, this is good for our state, and it's happening right here, and I'm very proud of everything that happened. All right, I have nothing to pull off consent, but we will go to, if I might have a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A, B, C, D, G, H, I, J, and K. You say that, Charlotte?
With the exception
Anybody
of
want to
A and F.
second that?
Second.
I do have a second from Harry. We do have a motion on these items. Do I have any further discussion from council on these items? Do I have public comment on these items? If not, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. We will now go to item number E, which is consider approving task order 104 with KSA Engineers in the amount of $231,000 and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Mr. Richardson, what are your questions?
Yes, I'd just like to know what the purpose of this task order is and what the money is being spent on.
This is a...
Please identify, sir.
Yes, sir, sorry. I'm Mitch Sprunger. I'm the Deputy Airport Director, filling in for Luis. He's out today. This is a Federal Aviation Administration requirement. The geometry of our airfield is considered non-standard, so they want us to realign a few taxiways and then just add some additions on our ramp so we're up to their design standards.
Thank you.
Would you like to move to approve, sir?
Okay, I move to approve this item.
Second.
E.
Do I have a second from Charlotte? Do I have any other questions for council? Do I have public comment on this item? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one, Brian. Item number F is consider approving task order number 105 with KSA Engineers in the amount of $120,000 and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Mr. Richardson.
Well, same question, sir.
Same answer. It's a Federal Aviation Administration requirement. And the purpose of it is they require pavement evaluations for air carrier airports like San Angelo Regional. It's going to give us a maintenance schedule on our pavement, give us an idea of what pavements we need to focus on for future replacement, and then also it gives us a load-bearing capacity on what aircraft we can actually land out there at the airport.
Okay, thank you for the explanation, and I move to approve.
Second.
You have a second from Marty. Any questions from council? Public comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Drop a 7-0 on that one too, Mr. Bryan. It is now time for the regular agenda or a motion to adjourn, whichever comes first.
Lunchtime already?
Let's get to the regular agenda. The first reading and public hearing on an ordinance amending Chapter 12, Exhibit A, zoning ordinance for bed and breakfast establishments and short-term rentals. Presentation by Planning and Development Services Director John James. And I think the way we should handle this, let's let John start it off and kind of give us an overview of what we're dealing with. I think at that time I would like to take public comment. And after we get all of the public comment, then we will discuss it with ourselves. And then hopefully we can come to a decision today and put this one behind us. Mr. James, you are on, sir.
Thank you. Again, John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. Want to start off talking just a little bit about what brought this up. It was initially based on complaints from neighbors of houses that were being used as short-term rentals. When a particular property owner came in to seek approval for that short-term rental, we had to tell them, well, those actually aren't allowed within the city limits. And so through those discussions, we committed to bringing forward this ordinance or an ordinance, or at least consideration for whether or not the city should allow short-term rentals within the community. So as we go through this, I want you to keep in mind that really there are two questions. The first one is simply, is something like a short-term rental something we want to allow in single-family residential neighborhoods in the city? So that's question number one. If you answer that yes, that under some circumstances short-term rentals should be allowed, then we need to consider what restrictions and what rules should be in place for those short-term rentals. And so that's a lot of what I'm going to be talking about, but keep in mind the first question you need to answer is whether or not to allow them. I will say that we've worked many months meeting with both sides on this issue. It went to the Planning Commission twice, once for a general discussion and then once to consider this specific ordinance. They recommended some changes, and so what comes to you is the ordinance recommended unanimously by the Planning Commission. Here, this slide just shows some of the complaints we've heard as we've discussed through this issue of perhaps why either not to allow short-term rentals or at least some things to think about in terms of future regulations of them. And I won't read through all these, but noise and trash and just some of the negative nuisances that you might see from short-term renters coming in, maybe spending a weekend and then leaving. And the idea is that perhaps they don't treat the property as well as someone more long-term. Now, what you'll probably hear from some of the renters of these is that what they've found is the short-term renters oftentimes are better than longer-term renters. And so that's something to keep in mind as well. Again, short-term rentals are not currently allowed in residential zoning in the city, so any that are currently operating are not legally allowed under the zoning. And so again, one of the questions for you is whether or not to allow those to continue, or if you choose to prohibit short-term rentals, we would work with those owners to shut down those operations. This does address bed and breakfasts as well, although that's not the focus of this ordinance. It cleans up the definitions to distinguish between bed and breakfast and short-term rental. It does create this new use called short-term rental as well. I'm not going to read through these definitions, but the ordinance does define these terms. Basically, what a short-term rental is the rental of a house for less than 30 days. The reason we chose that threshold of 30 days, number one, it's the distinction already in the ordinance. If you're renting a house for more than 30 days, that's allowed in a neighborhood. Less than 30 days, it's not. That's also the threshold for when you have to pay hotel tax on a property. Even though it's a single-family house, if you're renting it for less than 30 days, you're responsible for paying hotel tax to both the state and the city. That is something that we can't change, whether, no matter what you do with this ordinance, that state requirement for paying hotel tax would still be in effect. Bed and breakfast, this slide shows where they are allowed. That is no change. That's already currently in the ordinances. Bed and breakfasts are allowed. They do require a conditional use permit from the Planning Commission. So each individual bed and breakfast proposed would have to file an application, the neighbors would be notified, and the Planning Commission will ultimately make the decision if a bed and breakfast is right for that particular property. There we go. So similarly, where would a short-term rental be allowed? Under this proposed ordinance, it would also require a conditional use permit everywhere except the central business district. So similar to a bed and breakfast, the person proposing a short-term rental would have to come to the city, apply for a conditional use, and that would ultimately go to the Planning Commission for consideration. Again, all of the neighbors within 200 feet would be notified. They would have an opportunity to come and speak. So again, each one of these would be individually reviewed for appropriateness at that particular location. All of the standards we're going to talk about would not apply where the owner or a longer-term renter was using the property. So if they use the property for themselves, the owner, most of the time, these rules wouldn't apply. It's only for the periods within which they're renting for less than 30 days that these standards would apply. We did look at parking standards. For a short-term rental, there would be a minimum of 2 parking spaces required. For bed and breakfast, there would be the 2 spaces plus 1 space per separately rented bedroom. The signage would only be allowed for a bed and breakfast. That only allows a small sign. But for a short-term rental, there would be no commercial type signage allowed. These are standards that had been recommended for the short-term rental. The no camping is on there, but it's stricken out. The staff recommended to the Planning Commission that we not allow camping on the site of a short-term rental. After discussion, quite a bit of discussion on that, the Planning Commission recommended removing that provision. So if you adopt the ordinance as recommended by the Planning Commission, it would allow camping, say, in the backyard of a short-term rental. It would limit it to no more than 2 adults per bedroom, no outdoor gatherings of more than 20 people. Again, one of the concerns we heard was somebody renting a lake house for the weekend, for example, for something like a family reunion or a fraternity party or something that would bring in lots of people, creating problems for the neighbors. And so we looked at some other cities' ordinances, and this was a common requirement for short-term rentals to limit outdoor gatherings in order to help avoid some of those nuisances. Also, no outdoor gatherings could occur between 7 a.m. And 10:30, or they would have to occur between 7 a.m. and 10:30 p.m. So nothing late at night that could potentially affect the neighbors. It would also limit it to single-family occupancy. In this case, the Planning Commission recommended changing that from the normal requirement that applies citywide of no more than 4 unrelated people. They up that in the case of short-term rentals to no more than 6 unrelated people. The ordinance as proposed would require registration with the city of a short-term rental. Again, that would be part of the conditional use process. Once that was approved, if approved by the Planning Commission, those would be registered with the city. They would have to get a new certificate of occupancy for the building as a change in occupancy. That's really no change from today, in fact. The ordinance also allows those that are already operating and paying the hotel tax, they would have up to a year to go through this process and get their approvals. Any of the others, any new ones, or any of those that are existing that aren't paying the hotel tax would have to come into compliance immediately. The certificate of occupancy that would be issued could be revoked, so if there were complaints from neighbors, police calls out to the property, the city could come back and revoke that certificate of occupancy. One thing that I'll mention in just a minute, but I'll go ahead and mention it now. Something that's not in the draft ordinance that has been discussed recently is currently that conditional use that would be approved by the Planning Commission would be indefinite. One thing for you to consider is possibly making that a renewable permit so that if a short-term rental got approval to operate, that it would be for a period of a year, 2 years, something like that, and then they would have to come back and reapply after some period of time. That would give the neighbors the opportunity to come in and say, hey, they're not operating like they should. They're creating problems for the neighbors. You shouldn't renew their permit. Or if they're operating in a way that the neighbors are not being nuisance, then the Planning Commission could renew them for another 2 years, for example. Again, that's not in the ordinance as drafted, as comes before you from the Planning Commission, but that's something that you may want to consider. Just a little bit about the certificate of occupancy and a required fire inspection. These would be regulated as homes, not as a business, so it wouldn't trigger things like sprinklers and some of the other things that might apply to a hotel. It would only look at things like the number of entrances and exits to the building, smoke alarms, fire extinguishers, kind of the basics that would be required or recommended in a home would be required for these short-term rentals. Existing structures would not have to be brought up to full code as if it was a new building being built. It would just have to meet those minimum fire safety standards. We did look, as we often do when we're proposing ordinances, we looked at other cities. And this is what we found as we reviewed some of our peer cities. Midland currently has no restrictions on short-term rentals. Abilene also basically has no restrictions. They're allowed. They're just limited as any other single-family home. But there, it's no different if you're renting a house for a year or a weekend. They're all treated the same. In Lubbock, on the other hand, kind of the other end of the spectrum, Lubbock doesn't allow short-term rentals at all. So this unlike some of the ordinances we look at where there's some consistency among cities, with short-term rentals, it's everything from completely prohibited to completely allowed. And then we have some that we looked at sort of in the middle. Austin was one of those until recently. Short-term rentals were allowed, similar to what's being recommended in the proposed ordinance. However, back in February of this year, they rescinded that ordinance and are accepting no new applications for short-term rentals. Those existing would be allowed to continue for some time. They do require, or they did require the certificate of occupancy, registration, et cetera. Similarly, Fredericksburg also allows short-term rentals, but with some restrictions. It does require certificate of occupancy, compliance with the fire code. They don't allow outdoor events like weddings or parties unless it's in commercial zoning. They do have a 2-year renewal, as I mentioned earlier, that you might want to consider as well. So again, I think I've mentioned both of these, but some things to consider that aren't in the ordinance, addressing that issue of camping, as well as a time-limited conditional use approval. Again, before we get into the nuts and bolts of how you would regulate these, I think the first question you want to answer is, should we allow them at all? And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think we need to have public comment at this time. I would ask you, and I know that we have kind of set a precedence in our public comment that people went over, but I'm going to ask you to limit your remarks to 3 minutes. I'm going to ask you to not repeat the same things over and over and over again, because after we have heard it, we have heard it. And I'm going to ask you to do it one at a time. State your name. 3 minutes. We'll start with you, Trinidad.
Well, good morning, Mayor, Council, and Mr. Valenzuela, of course. I'm Trinidad Aguirre, and I'm the president of the Lake Nasworthy Homeowners Association. And it's our board's responsibility to ensure that Lake Nasworthy continues to fulfill the vision of the city and the community as an economic and recreational centerpiece for San Angelo and the surrounding area, while protecting the lake residents' property. The Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, our CCRs, which our HOA operates under, were created on July 25th, 2000 by you, the City of San Angelo. The city currently relies on the Lake Nasworthy HOA to administer and enforce certain lake rules and development standards along the lakeside. We take this responsibility seriously and work with the city on day-to-day issues. But in the CCRs under Article 4, Use Restrictions and Architectural Standards, in Section 4.01, Property Use, it states, all lots must comply with city zoning. So I'll repeat, all lots must comply with city ordinances or zoning. Our CCRs do not designate lots as RS1 or commercial or other. That is up to the zoning board. So after several discussions by the HOA board and the membership, we, the HOA board, have elected to stay neutral on this subject, given the fact that our CCRs give us no jurisdiction and our membership is divided on this matter. It's important to note that our HOA board consists of parties supporting both sides of this argument. We, the HOA, will take guidance from your decision today, and we will enforce your decision. My only request is that you make the decision today, as we have discussed, as it now has become antagonistic amongst our neighbors and amongst our board, and it's time to put this issue to rest. So I pray that you have the wisdom, and after everyone has spoken, you make a decision that will somewhat satisfy all parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Dad. Next.
Pro and con?
Just take whoever gets up gets to say their piece.
My name is Greg Gossett. I'm a lawyer and have practiced here in San Angelo for coming upon a half a century. My practice is mostly real estate. I'm a co-owner of First Title Company, and I'm board certified by the State Bar of Texas in commercial real estate. Every person in this room believes in private property rights. But the first point I want to make is that when a person buys a residential home in a residential neighborhood that is zoned single family residential by a city that has adopted a comprehensive zoning ordinance, that person does not have a private property right to convert the home into a commercial enterprise. The second point I'd like to make is that when a middle-class citizen purchases a home in a neighborhood, expecting it will provide a safe place for his children to play on Friday and Saturday night, trusting that as the mortgage is paid down over the years, the home will maintain and perhaps even increase in value, that person does have a right to expect that the city will not sacrifice his future for special interests that will make a cheap profit by converting the neighborhood home into a commercial business. The third point I want to make is the city has, and in place now, ordinance that justify its police power over its citizens. You currently have defined short-term rentals as basically mini motels. They're, under your current zoning regulation, they are defined as commercial activities. We didn't incorporate the city for the pleasure of paying taxes or being ticketed by the police department. When people live in close proximity to each other, a whole host of different problems arise. And so we give up some of our private property rights for the protection that the city gives us in its regulation. The zoning ordinances restrict our use of property. City planning restricts our use on how we divide our lots. City building permits restricts our use on how we build our houses. Almost every function that the city performs restricts our property rights to some degree or another. And that's okay as long as you do that in a uniform way, following the standards that you have set down in the past. And so let's look at those ordinances. In section 104 of your city ordinances, you set out the purpose and criteria to justify the zoning. Paragraph 2 of section 104 says that the purpose of zoning is to protect the character and established pattern of desirable development. If the established pattern is residential, and then you allow commercial activity, you violate your own ordinance for the purpose of zoning. Paragraph 3 of that same section says the purpose of zoning is to minimize land use incompatibilities. If you allow commercial activity in residential areas, you are authorizing incompatibilities in violation of your own ordinance. Paragraph 4 of your ordinance states that a justification for zoning ordinance is to maintain property values. When you authorize commercial activity next to residential homes, you destroy the value of those homes. And lastly, Section 5 of your zoning ordinance says the purpose of zoning is to respect the rights of property owners and the interests of citizens. Less than 1% of the population will benefit from this. The other 98 to 95% of your citizens will not benefit and may be well damaged by it. And so we respectfully request that you vote down this ordinance, short-term rentals.
Thank you, Mr. Gossett. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Debbie Powell. I am grudgingly here speaking in favor of the proposed ordinance. I am not a lawyer, and nor do I play one on TV. I am a lifelong, full-time resident of San Angelo, using precious vacation time to be here. You're going to hear a lot of speeches today, and some are based on hearsay and some are based on fact. Some of the rumors, the owners of the short-term rentals knew this was illegal, and they went to the planning department and convinced them to put an ordinance in place to allow short-term rentals. None of us knew this was allowed. I asked the city before I started this almost 3 years ago, and I was told that the only thing I needed to do was sign up for the occupancy tax. One of the rental properties at the lake is owned by someone in Midland and managed by a local real estate agent. That owner did complain to the HOA, and it was my understanding that the HOA then went to the planning department to see about getting this stopped. In my opinion, that was a complete overreaction. We received phone calls from the city council member at that time telling us that there was going to be an ordinance introduced to ban short-term rentals. We were allowed to meet with the planning director to tell him why we thought short-term rentals should stay in place and that we didn't even need an ordinance. Never did they say, oh, well, the ordinance is to allow it. We thought it was to ban short-term rentals because we were under the impression it was allowed already. Vacation homes, this is a rumor. Vacation homes bring in a lot of partying, noise, and illegal urinating in the yards. Stats obtained from the San Angelo Police Department clearly show that the operating short-term rentals have almost zero calls to the police. Rumor that the Planning Commission was somehow fooled into unanimously voting to approve this ordinance. The fact is, all 7 members of the Planning Commission received information from both sides, and then the commission had not 1, but 2 public meetings and unanimously approved the ordinance as fair to all. rumor that this would drive down property values. The fact is, these properties are extremely well kept and well maintained. My guests expect everything to be spectacular, and I want them to be impressed every time, whether it is their first time or their fourth. Rumor. Austin has banned these types of short-term rentals. I think Mr. James clarified that, but the actions that the City of Austin has taken, such as no longer accepting the new applications, has landed them in a lawsuit filed by the Texas Public Policy Commission over constitutional rights, such as restricting the number of people allowed on the property, which may violate the right to peaceful assembly. If people are gathered on the property, having barbecues and fishing, they are not breaking any laws. When the overtaxed and overregulated citizens of California sell their overpriced homes, as so many of us know, they move to Austin and the Texas Hill Country. Well, Mr. Mayor and City Council members, we don't need California and Austin way of doing things. Texas is not California, and San Angelo is not Austin. Let's keep it that way. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next. Your opportunity. Come forward.
Morning, and thank you for your
ma'am.
time. My name is Delrin Fleming. I have a full-time house in Carrollton, Texas, but I'm the owner of a home and the lot at 1818 South Concho, Lake Nasworthy. My father leased the lot in 1950s, and he later built a house on it in the 1970s. When the leases became available for purchase, we bought the house. I was born in San Angelo and graduated from San Angelo Central High School. My father owned a business here. My parents lived here in San Angelo until they died. My sister, her children, and her 4 grandsons live here. They're my grandnephews. And I tell you this today to say that I have an emotional investment in San Angelo. I love it very much. I'm a great recruiter for people to come to San Angelo. At our home here, I have a local contract for the internet, the telephone, and television access when it works. I pay water and utilities, and I am very grateful, by the way, for curbside recycling. My husband and I have a health club membership here, and I travel here to get my hair cut. Here, I have added a bedroom and a bath to the house and a new boat dock. We've replaced windows and tiled the floor. I pay $7,500 in taxes to Tom Green County every year. I mention these things to explain that I have a financial investment in San Angelo. That said, my husband and I are getting older, and during our living on our retirement monies, we're finding the 5-hour drive from Carrollton to be a little more arduous as time passes, and yet I would like very much to keep my home here in San Angelo. So we've been considering becoming a short-term rental property. We are not at this time. My family members and husband and I have been short-term renters in other cities. We've enjoyed the properties and had novel experiences with their hotels and with their dining and shopping and local attractions as we would promote here. Nevertheless, I can tell you that the greatest risk is not to the inconvenience of our neighbors, it is to our home. And so I've done research about these companies, and I'm sure that your people have as well. I've learned that I can vet my renters. I can ask why they're coming, how many of them are there, what ages they are, and how many cars they will bring. If they deceive me in any way, and they have caused trouble, they will be banned from future contracts, not just by me, but from the overarching management company and everywhere. It's a risk to them to do that. I have learned that 76% of short-term renters are married, 75% have children, 81% are between the ages of 31 and 60. These data don't mean that a 40-year-old couple won't have a party that is disturbing to the neighbors, but as you have pointed out in your ordinance, there are problems, then you will call the police and they will come and correct it. Regarding the benefits to the city, your ordinance explains that. There's hotel taxes that you will receive, probably a fee for the fire inspection, and that I have learned that these renters spend more money locally than hotel visitors. So I'm in support of your ordinance, and I hope that you can pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Donna Ferguson. I have lived next door to a short-term rental for somewhere between 8 and 10 years. They converted one on the other side of that one to a short-term rental, so there's two within very close proximity. I have had a lot of trouble with different renters over time. The place next to me it's a nice house. It's got a fenced yard, an open yard, 2 decks, a dock, a boathouse, and lots of room for renters to enjoy. Yet they seem to want to come over to my place and trespass quite a bit. I started locking my boathouse after 2 separate instances where people helped themselves to my fishing equipment and anything else that they wanted out of my boathouse. I've asked people not to tie their trot lines to my dock and kids not to play and run on my dock. I've had to remind numerous people that my dock is not part of the rental package. I've had to ask a very large man and his kids not to run across a drainage trough that I have, and he very angrily informed me that he was chasing his dog, which was unleashed. I've had to ask kids not to throw rocks at my property, my boathouse, and much worse, my pets. I've seen lots of alcohol on many of the weekends that the property is rented. The more they drink, the later in the day it gets, the louder they get. Sometimes I ask them to turn their music down. Sometimes I just go in the house, shut the door, windows, which happens quite a lot on weekends. I have even asked one group to turn off their music and quit playing their guitars at 2 a.m. in the morning, and it continued till 3. I've gotten attitude from renters. Some of them been very grateful that I've reminded them of some things that they shouldn't be doing. I asked one man and not to shoot a gun. I didn't realize until he told me it was a potato gun. I've asked people not to shoot fireworks toward my house. So I've had a lot of negative things happen. I've asked several people if they would buy property next to a short-term rental. They all told me no, not knowing that if they knew they were short-term rentals, they would not buy next to them. I've seen a mail carrier turn around when the cul-de-sac is full of vehicles. Excessive trash and inadequate containers have been a problem since the very beginning. I also brought pictures to show y'all if you're interested in looking at those. This has been an ongoing problem. It's not something that's an isolated problem. This past weekend, they had the great renters there. There must have been at least 10 cars. They were parked like a parking lot. You wouldn't want for better, that's 2 copies of the same thing. This one property was rented next to me. It was a great weekend, no problems. If the other property on the other side, you can imagine what 10 more cars or someone carrying boats and trailers would have caused, what kind of a problem it would have been. Weekend renters are transients. They come and they go. They have no commitments and no worries. It is a business, and a transient business especially when multiple properties are owned by the same person. This STR, or these STRs, have had a negative effect on me. And
Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to wind it down, please.
Okay, I'm through. I will say police calls will increase, though. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you for your time. My name is Carol Hill. My wife and I are retired. We purchased our home in the Southridge Addition because as we age and get older, we like to think that we're in a neighborhood where we know our neighbors and they know us. In fact, in our neighborhood, we have several widow ladies that we take care of. We meet their needs. And I can tell you, if I had a short-term rental next door to me, where you do not know from weekend to weekend who's going to be in that property, that scares me. Because I may not be, my wife may be a widow lady in that house at some point in time. And I do not want people in our residential neighborhood where we don't know them. And in a short-term rental, you're going to have new people all the time. And I know that I've heard that you can vet these people, and I understand that. And there's good people that rent these properties. But there are also some party houses going on. And let's just call it like it is. And that may be only 1 in 20, but I don't want that 1 in 20 next door to me. Because number one, it will hurt my property value over time. And I did some research on my own. Odessa was not mentioned in one of these cities. They do not allow short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods. They can only be in commercial zone or multifamily zone. I also went in person to Abilene. I don't want to repeat that. We know that Abilene allows these, but the planner that I was talking to in person, I asked, how do you enforce these restrictions? He looked around to make sure that his boss was not close, and he said, there is no way we can enforce these restrictions. We do not have the manpower. And I do not believe that this city has the manpower to enforce these restrictions. You're allowing on the police to be called, and the police are not going to come pick up the beer cans the next morning in my yard or the trash. They're going to ask them to simmer down if there's a problem that night about 2 o'clock. But they're not going to be back. The police aren't to clean up. So I ask you, I do not want one of these STRs next to my house. And I think as council, as your council, I believe if you'll think about it long and hard, you won't want one of these party houses next door to you either. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who's next? Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Becky Francis, and I did not stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. My husband and I like to stay at vacation rentals instead. Frank and I own a vacation rental called Concha Quarters, and it's located in the downtown area of San Angelo. We feel that we've been good stewards of this property. We feel that Concha Quarters has not reduced the property values on the streets or devalued and degraded the integrity of our neighborhood. Frank and I have pride in ownership of this property that is in a unique area of San Angelo. Our guests can walk under Highway 87 Bridge and access the walking bridge to Kids Kingdom. They can see Christmas lights from the front porch of the house or watch bats fly out from under the bridge at dusk. They're close to the river stage, the museum, the municipal pool, Fort Concho. Our guests are seeing an original side of San Angelo that they wouldn't see if they're staying in a motel. If you look at it from a visitor's point of view, there are other areas of San Angelo that would be interesting to stay. I'd like to stay at a Victorian house in Santa Rita, at a house with a prime golfing in Bentwood, and of course, who wouldn't want to stay at a lake house with their kids? There are other areas in San Angelo that are appealing in their own ways. Our guests have come from several states and numerous Texas cities. They come for vacations, graduations, family reunions, weddings, city events, friends gatherings, and holidays. We provide a unique San Angelo experience for our visitors to our city that wish to stay in an alternative lodging that is a vacation rental. I ask that you approve short-term rentals in San Angelo and that you do not restrict outside gatherings to 20 people and some of the other Planning Commission ordinance that were proposed. Some of the restrictive ordinances, such as the 20 people having a tent in the front yard, or say if I had 12 bunco gals, I let 12 bunco gals stay the night in that house, I'd be breaking the law. You know, so anyway, I just would like for you to consider that, and I thank you for your time, and good luck.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Debbie Walls. This is my husband, Jerry Walls, and we live in the Southland Hills area of town. Years ago, we watched a neighborhood decline because single-family residences were being converted to rentals. So when we heard that we were going to have consideration for STRs, we joined the Save Our Neighborhoods group to get educated. Renter owners know that there is inherent risk, and rental neighbors know that there are typically inherent problems when the home next door to you becomes a rental business. I'm here today to ask you not to allow this to happen in our neighborhoods, and I was also asked to respond to prior statements we had heard about the economic impact of short-term rentals. The first area would be the hotel occupancy tax and an increase in that to the city of San Angelo. We know that 31 homes are currently definitively identified as unpermitted STRs in San Angelo. Less than 1/2 of those have remittance records to the state comptroller's office, and even less than that were found by the City of San Angelo Finance Department as remitting hotel occupancy taxes. I have papers here from the comptroller's office, many spreadsheets that have identified this information for us. I have provided you with one concise paper that is a shorter analysis of that. On that paper, as you can tell, here in the years of 2014, 2015, and 2016 so far, from our hotels and motels, they have had taxable income of almost $93 million. Short-term rentals have amounted to about $224,000, according to comptroller records. That has given us a total in those same years of tax impact, San Angelo's portion only, of almost $6.5 million, while short-term rentals have benefited us about $15,000. Only you and the people that work for San Angelo can tell you whether that $15,000 over 2.5 years is enough income to provide for the costs of monitoring these and permitting and licensing STRs and providing cost and benefits for the personnel that are going to be required to do this. And I feel that even if we were to allow an increase, say if we took their highest year of $110,000 and increased that to allow for STR owners who maybe did not know that what the reporting requirements were, I do not believe we would see a beneficial uptick on that. Okay. We also feel that these people come to an STR to have a kitchen. That means they're not going to be in our community utilizing restaurants and bars and things that would expand the economic impact in that way on our city. We love tourism and the positive impact it has on San Angelo. We just feel that we have hotels here that can offer some of the same amenities. They already exist with a lot of capital investment in San Angelo, and they have rooms. The comptroller's data shows us they're operating now at about 58.3 of capacity of what they were at a year ago this same time. And these hotels are not going to work against the fabric of our neighborhoods. We believe if you consider the data about economic impact and many more issues, that you will agree with us that it's not STRs are not an issue that would be prudent for our area. Thank you for serving. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And my name is Jerry Walls, and I want to tell you, thank you, Mayor, thank you, Council, for listening to us today. Please consider all these options that you have been given, and I pray that you'll make the correct decision that helps everybody in the community. Thank you all again.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Kevin Wilson. I live on the lake, and I've only lived here almost 9 years now. And I grew up in California, and taxes got so high there. For an example, there's a lot of, we go visit, we stay in these short-term rentals on the beach in Central California, and a lot of these people are retired that own these places still, and the only way they can still own these places is to lease their place out for several months out of the year to pay for taxes and maintenance. And a lot of them are widows, and so, you know, I'm getting to the age where I'm looking at retirement, and the way the taxes are going, my mortgage is $500 and my taxes are twice that. By the time I retire, and you know, unless I'm working my butt off, I'm not gonna be able to keep my home that I worked hard for. And I don't want to get rich, I just want to have the option to lease it out a little bit to help pay for taxes, maintenance, and then someday maybe give it to my kids, who I know they can't afford it at first, or they're going to have to sell it if they don't have the option to make a little money. So, you know, I understand how people don't want these in their neighborhood, but as you know, as rights go, I'd hate to see you take away something that people can generate a little money to be able to keep their homes, and that's and in California, Mariposa, my mother-in-law has a house up there, and she's going to start doing this, and they have a very successful program around the state and the world. There's very successful programs. It's just a matter of being able to do it properly. And yeah, there's going to be some bad apples, but my wife and I really like to bring people into this city, share the beautiful lake and the experience of this town. And we have a lot of people moving to Texas from California and other states that we invite in that are good people. And I do manage some rentals, and I've gotten some terrible renters for a whole year, and I'm just counting the days till they get rid of them. At least with these stays, if you have a problem up to the day with anybody that you're going to let stay at your place for a couple of days, you can cancel them that day if you feel that they're not going to be a good short-term rental. But up in Mariposa, they even, last year I went to a city council meeting, they have the old miners and they have the retired people up there. And they're coming to an agreement. Boy, they were fighting and yelling and screaming, way worse than anything I've seen. Because these old miners, they don't want nobody to tell them what to do. And then the retired people are like, we want to keep our town beautiful and this and that. Because in the old days, the miners tore up everything. So they're coming to an agreement. If the miners and the retired people can come to an agreement, and I think that's what it's all about, is just coming to an agreement. You can't say, I don't think it's black and white here. I really think that this can be done successfully, but it's going to take people working together. That's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Karen Martinez, and my parents own a short-term rental. I understand there has been much deliberation on the question whether to ban short-term rentals in San Angelo. Although this debate has an unsure outcome, there is one thing I know for sure: the happiness that short-term rentals have brought my parents. Short-term rental owners absolutely love to make other people feel happy. I can't describe their true feelings in words because it wouldn't do them justice. But what I can tell you is their big smile at the end of the day after they read their reviews. We are all about accommodating and welcoming tourists, simultaneously making them feel at home. Providing this home feeling for guests is extremely useful, given that San Angelo is home to the great school of Angelo State University. I am a junior at ASU. Therefore, I know many students who are from all across Texas or even out of state. I am very fortunate to be from San Angelo, so I get to experience that home feeling most students lack. Many students aren't as lucky to receive that home benefit that I do, and that is where short-term rentals can come into play. ASU parents have the opportunity to visit their son or daughter staying at a vacation rental that offers them the home away from home feeling that they lack. I completely understand that this is extremely beneficial for students because of how they feel homesick. How convenient is it for parents to bring that sense of home feeling for their son or daughter to San Angelo? Right now, I'm going to read some of a review of my parents' vacation rental regarding this. And I quote, "My family stayed here while visiting our son who attends ASU and could not come home for spring break. The house is very roomy and comfortable. Our kids really enjoyed the use of the paddle boat, and the island across the way is very scenic to enjoy while relaxing outside. This is definitely a place we would stay again. It was so much better than staying in a hotel, as our family was able to just hang out and relax, rather than just trying to find places to go out and have fun. Owners are super fast on questions and very helpful. Excellent stay," unquote. It is truly an amazing feeling to see what my parents have accomplished in the recent year of owning a short-term rental. They work hard to bring about joy in visitors' eyes, and this characteristic is unique in contrast to hotels. It is a shame that short-term rentals are looked at as detrimental to the city instead of what they really are, an asset to San Angelo. Look at the prosperous town such as Fredericksburg. On Airbnb.com, it listed there were 251 rentals just on that website. You tell me that short-term rentals in the Fredericksburg area don't provide an economic advantage for their city? I believe banning short-term rentals in San Angelo causes the city to stop developing into its full potential. I understand there are some who feel that neighborhoods aren't exactly safe with guests. However, this is something that you can come into conflict with living anywhere. The house that we have lived in for about 5 years have experienced the same exact issues being brought up now. For example, there have been times in the morning that I have found empty beer cans in our front yard from the night before from a party that was held 2 houses down. Some nights I would not even have parking spaces to park. I also know someone who lives in an apartment and has a neighbor that blasts their music constantly. My point is, this is a general conflict with real estate itself. I do believe certain regulations can be a simple solution to the alleged conflict spoken of. However, completely banning short-term rentals is not the answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Randall Johnson. I'm also a resident out at the lake. I have many objections to the STRs, but due to the limitation of time, I'm going to just focus on one specific item. One negative impact of operating a business that brings in transient clientele is that in our neighborhoods is that of safety. A specific area is that of having a convicted sexual predators residing in these businesses without any opportunity for us to be notified. Current Texas law recognizes that safety and concern of residences is important, and it requires sex offenders to register with authorities where they reside. This information is further made public so that a resident can identify if a sexual offender is living in their area. However, a registered sex offender can legally rent an STR for 48 hours for up to 3 times a month without any notification to any city official or neighborhood. A homeowner living next to an STR has no way of knowing if there is a convicted sexual offender in their neighborhood. This is a concern primarily if you have children or grandchildren. Allowing the STR, basically, it takes away from me the right to know who is living in my neighborhood. It changes the complexion of the neighborhood. Even if you required background checks of individuals renting the STR, I don't think it could extend all the guests that could come in. Yeah, true, a sexual predator can visit a neighbor, can actually stay with a neighbor, but neighbors have a little bit more invested. We know each other, we know what's going on, and I think they have a little bit of our interest. We share that interest together, taking care of each other. I don't have confidence in a corporation or a business owner putting my safety and welfare above their profit margin. Even if the city could enact language in the ordinance permitting STRs, I have serious doubts as to the resources available to regulate and enforce the protections. I am opposed to any action by local government that would allow these businesses to operate or continue operating in our neighborhoods. Again, thank you for allowing me to voice my opinion.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Jean Ann Dambert, and in regards to this, I am for the STRs. I have one that my husband and I own together, and that we classify that as our second home, and I have two that I'm co-owners with our children. In regards to the comment that was just mentioned for sex offenders, on the St. Angelo website, you can see all the red that have sex offenders. It's all over the city. Your next door neighbor could be a sex offender. They're identifying us as having sex offenders at our home. Granted, do we always know that? No, we don't. But look at the stats on the website as to the sex offenders that live next door. I presented to you a pamphlet showing you and introducing you to St. Angelo Lakeations. St. Angelo Lakeations, I am co-owner with my children on 3 different properties. I have not solicited one person to like our page. It has turned out to be over 4,400 people that have solicited to like St. Angelo Lakeations. St. Angelo Lakeations have brought many people to St. Angelo. We have to remember that the lake is public. It's not a private lake. It brings people to our wonderful city, such as we've hosted police officers at our homes for police events and military. Let's talk about the military people here. Are we going to be anti-military in our community and say, no, we don't want you here? Absolutely not. Every single one of my homes is Go Green. I hope most of you know what that means. That means we support our military veterans. I have a green light on the front door of every home. Our military people are very important here, for Goodfellow brings a lot of business to this town. I can't turn away those people. Those people come to be with their military personnel. It's a family environment. At Christmas time, we have a Christmas tree and decorations that we put up for them. I have also snowbirds, so I'm a conflict that I go 30-day rentals. I have people that stay at my home for 3 months, snowbirds. But this is a public entity. It's one of the largest growing entities in the world. Airbnb is the fastest growing entrepreneur short-term rental ever to be. We need to get on the bandwagon, put regulations in. As you see, the pamphlet shows the 3 homes. I also have presented to you a contract that I present to every single one of my short-term rentals. And in this contract, it does show the etiquette that we expect our short-term renters to have. And that needs to be a part of this whole discussion and regulations to be put in place. Remember, This is San Angelo. We offer tourism here. We can't turn away these people. We would have to welcome them gladly. Thank you. I have one more thing.
Ma'am, we've got to get back on our 3-minute time, or we're going to be here all night long. And I will ask the rest of the people, when that alarm goes off, you've got your 3 minutes. Please draw your remarks to a close. You're next, ma'am.
Morning, Mayor, Council. I'm Meredith Hughes. I am a Lake resident in opposition to short-term rentals. I think we've heard a lot of for and against. I'm not against any particular type of people coming and staying next to my home. I'm not against the military. I'm not against policemen. I'm against not knowing who my neighbor is. I think if you ask yourself that question, you'd say the same thing. I bought my house here at Lake Nasworthy a few years ago. I knew then that it could not be turned into a short-term rental. I knew then I was on a public lake, but that I was buying a private property, and that property was going to be regulated not only by the council, but also by the HOA. My property values will go down. We've got multiple traffic, whether you're a resident or not, on that street that comes down. We've got a problem already handling that traffic. And I wonder how are we going to solve the problem of the new ordinance and the new regulations we're going to put in if we can't solve the problems we have today. We have a problem with safety on the lake already, and it being public use, and that's great that it's public use. However, you've got a lot of people on the lake that they don't have the vested interest that your residents on the lake do. The vetted rentals, we've heard a lot about that you can vet your customers. We also, I think everybody can vet employees and vet friends, and we find out that even some employees, after being vetted, can sometimes not be as great. So I think at the end of the day, if you ask yourself, do you want to live or buy property next to a short-term rental? Do you want to have your property values go up? Do you know what your rights are when you buy it and what your restrictions already are before buying it? Yes, you do. And at the end of the day, I don't think anybody would want to buy a house next to a short-term rental knowing ahead of time that that's what they were getting.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Todd Guffey. I have a short-term rental, and I've enjoyed the experiences and people that I've met from across Texas and several from out of state. I enjoy seeing my family use the house continually and letting other families get to use what we get to use every day. There's nothing like a West Texas sunset on the lake. The misinformation campaign that I've heard about is one hypothetical case after another. I haven't heard many actual facts of any current situation. I have heard a lot of fear and seclusion, and that's not what we can base our decisions on. They say we take money from the economy, but what we do is our vacation rentals bring in revenue to San Angelo, and we pay taxes. It doesn't just bring in the sales or the taxes as far as the hotel tax, it brings in sales tax. They spend a lot of money when they come in each weekend. They fill up the trash canisters. That takes money. They say they're dangerous to our neighborhoods. Vacation rentals do not bring any more danger or negative situations to our neighborhood, any more so than any other average neighborhood. Situations cited by the opposition can easily be explained by other factors and situations, from the economy to the location you're in. They say they're commercial. Vacation rentals are residential use for single families, which are exactly what we rent to. And the courts agree. It's the Third Circuit Appeals Court in Austin, a Travis County court, 5 state Supreme Courts, and additional 4 appeals courts have ruled conclusively that short-term rental is a residential use. These STRs are no more commercial than a long-term rental is. Courts in Texas, Florida, California of all places, and also Arizona had defined STRs as residential use. You show me a city that you say is banned or do not allow STRs, and I'll show you a vacation rental in that city. College Station has 142, Austin 1,785, Fort Worth, which is pretty strict, has 124, Midland and Odessa each have 25 plus. Lubbock, which I've heard do not allow them, has 72. That's currently on the site right now at homeaway.com. I hear of party houses. Our houses specifically say no parties at our house. If I find out a party's going on, your rent is over, I take your money and you're out of my house. Property values going down, there's no proof of that. You can go to the tax office. They say your tax values are not going to go down according to this. In fact, they said that they want to tax our house up to $50 per square foot more. So the property values are not going to go down because you're next to an STR. In fact, they say it's going to go up as much as 10% each year until they get to the conclusive to whatever the state has. Time's up. Sorry,
Thank you,
guys.
sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, members of the council. My name is Brianna Martinez, and I'm a grad student at Angelo
Please
State.
speak into the microphone, please, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm a grad student at Angelo State. My parents own a short-term rental. I've prepared these remarks on their behalf, not because they asked me, but I want to, and also to put an end to the treatment they've received from neighbors and others against them. I'm sorry, but if peace and quiet is what you want, then you should have purchased a lot with more land because everybody has to deal with rowdy neighbors every once in a while, especially on the lake and especially during peak seasons. I can assure you that even if my parents were to rent out their lake house for a long period of time, you will have noise, parties, barbecues, and lots of people. Why? Because it's a lake house. It's meant to be enjoyed. And I can guarantee, I'm just tired of my parents being ostracized by people who I thought were their friends. This has escalated into a witch hunt, and I just want to see this end, and this issue put to rest. Supposed open meetings that are only open to members who don't have short-term rentals, letters put in mailboxes without postage, even Facebook groups are just a few examples. The pettiness needs to stop. Seriously, though, this is the future of vacation rentals. I always look for short-term rentals when I go. Hotels are a thing of the past. I just don't see a way you can ethically take away the option for a short-term rental. I thought this was America, the land of the free, where entrepreneurship strives and succeeds. So taking this option away will essentially take away any outsider from staying at our lake. I mean, I guess they can pitch a tent and stay at a park or something, but what about the people who want to enjoy it from the comfort of a home? What kind of message does that send? Are we really going to be that secluded so as to have an ordinance that doesn't allow anybody to rent out a lakefront property for a weekend or a week? It just doesn't seem right to have a hotel be the only option. Obviously, there should be rules, and I don't think you should be given free rein. It is completely doable. The assets can be quite lucrative if welcomed. Taking short-term rentals away, in my opinion, would be like taking a step back, not only economically, but socially. The broader picture is that these are bringing money into our local economy and are not a detriment to neighborhoods. The property owner is forced to upkeep their home and keep it looking aesthetically pleasing in order to attract others to stay, which is more than I can say for some empty houses that have remained vacant and become dilapidated due to lack of upkeep. I make no apologies for how my parents work harder and dream bigger to make a fulfilling lifestyle with this house, all while having full-time jobs, mind you, out of something that naysayers would rather have sit vacant than be successful. I understand that there have been issues in the past with others, but it is wildly unfair to punish the collective whole entirely because of a very few that lack the class I have seen from my parents and others at this meeting. I'm not saying let them have free rein. I too believe there should be rules and guidelines, but no way should this be banned altogether. Let us work together to find compromise.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I hadn't even got the timer started yet. I'll wait till you start talking.
Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Jerry Grashaw. Yes, I'm from California. I have voted every single time since I moved here 12 years ago, even when it was down to a meager 15%. I pay attention. I've never been in front of the council. When I first moved here 12 years ago, I was looking for an area that was classified as single-family residential homes. I have 3 grown children and 4 grandchildren. They spend a lot of time with me and my wife since we moved to the lake. That
classification was very important to me, single-family residential homes, since I came from Los Angeles, and I know the value of a decent neighborhood and what it can be. And we moved to Texas. It was due to knowing that the rights of one's home and property was a sacrosanct homestead issue here, as were laws and rights. Today, the City Council wants to change the laws and rules of our neighborhoods because, according to Mr. Morrison, no personal offense, it will help the middle class. Let me inform you, Mr. Morrison, the middle class can no longer afford the property taxes the city demands for homes on the lakes, much less afford the houses themselves. So these new zoning ordinances and laws must be for the lady in Bentwood that has 3 houses that she's renting as STRs. Or these changes must be for the doctor that has an STR and never spends any time in the beat-up home because he just doesn't spend any more time in the lake anymore. Or the B&B owner that has moved from his residence close to the B&B and is now STRing his home along with the B&B. I sort of felt when I moved to San Angelo that the city council did not have the right to destroy the fabric of our neighborhoods. I thought also that the council did not have the right to devalue or degrade our neighborhoods. The council surely shouldn't have the right to change language, word meanings, and concepts about neighborhoods without the approval of those neighborhoods. That's like taxation without representation. So as I've talked to people in neighborhoods in the past number of days, no one that I have talked to thought any of this was a good idea. And no one wants an SDR next door to them. And I am sorry to state that I have heard about more discomfort and dissatisfaction in this city since the new mayor has become mayor, and the disappointment. Sorry, sir. City Council, the neighborhoods need you. The roads, the trash, the water, etc. The children need you. I'll finish.
Time.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Fair enough.
Next.
God bless you, sir. Thanks. The best part.
I'm fast in the yard, Dad. My name is Randall Scotty, and I am part of the group of Save Our Neighborhoods. I'd like to address a couple of things very quickly. Number one, I do live at the lake, and my property is zoned RS1, despite what Trinidad said. The second thing that I want to correct is the Austin City Ordinance, which I have provided all the council persons a copy of, and the mayor. That was enacted February 23rd, 2016, retroactive back to November 2015, and they are taking no new applications as of November 2015. All STRs will be phased out by 2022. That is a fact, and it is not in dispute. I have sent you guys the signed copy from their city council. The fact that Midland, Lubbock, and other cities show that you can find STRs on homeaway.com or any one of these other websites speaks to the problem that we have, and that is the lack of code enforcement. If we had the code enforcement here today, we would not be having this conversation. That's something that we have to beef up no matter which way we go. That has to be taken care of. As you might well know, I'm certainly against short-term rentals. The worst 3 summers I ever had is when I had one 2 doors down from me. It was terrible. And that's back before they were called STRs. There's another issue that should be addressed. It also is a fact not in dispute and has been reviewed by the legal department with the city, the real estate department, and the planning department. City-owned leased property does not allow subleasing or subletting of that property. So we already have people that have STRs on city property. That's a no-no. I guess I will close with saying that what I'm looking for is no new regulations, no new ordinances, and to leave my property rights alone and leave them intact. I bought into a residential area. I did a lot of research before I bought my property, and I did not make a bargain for someone to come in after the fact and want to change the rules. I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Do we need a break up here, Charlotte? Need a break down here? Yeah. Let's take about 15 minutes. I'm sorry to put you off, Mr. Scotty, but we've been sitting here almost 2 hours. It's time to get up and move around. So we'll be back at about 10:30, and we'll take the rest of the comments. 31, let's call this meeting back to order.
No.
And Mr. Scotty, you are up, sir. I apologize to you for stopping you, but now's your opportunity.
I knew y'all needed a break.
We did.
Mayor, councilwomen and men, I appreciate this very much. As the mayor knows, I'll give back some of my time very quick. I've been out there on the lake more than a half a century. I won't tell you how much longer, but quite a bit. And it has grew and prospered from a very bad state until a real nice one. But if you had this short-term rental in there, it would not have happened, I do not believe. I would not be there. I lived under some bad circumstances like this. It was done for years and years. And after you've listened to all these people, and I have, we, as lake residents, will probably have only two options left. We can either sell at a discount if y'all pass this and leave, or if you have the money or you can borrow it somewhere, you can buy the neighbor out. And that's about the only two options I see left. And them are pretty harsh options. So I think y'all consider this very, very hard, because these people have lived there and put all their work and their effort in these houses, and it'd be devastating to them, because most of them can't afford either one of these things. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Sammy Favory, and I live on the lake. And I've been listening to all this stuff, this big fight that's been going on. And so I decided to do a little bit of research as far as what was going on in my area. I live on Fisherman's Road. And so coming to my house, I have to pass Joy Road, and then there's Fisherman's Road, and it goes on around to Sleepy Hollow and Kings Road. And so I looked and found out a very large percentage of the people that own houses there don't live there. So in other words, they're kind of party houses, but they're homeowners. And so I know that on Joy Road, whenever I come home, quite often I have to pass a group of people that love to have parties at their house. And there are 20 to 30 to 40 cars parked there at any given time, and lots of barbecuing and lots of stuff going on, and that's fine. And they're strangers to the neighborhood, and we don't know who all's there, but they're homeowners. And this is what happens on the lake. I did some research around into the different areas, and there's actually a couple of businesses in that area that are being run out of their home, but a lot of people do not live there. Now, that's why I believe that the short-term rentals will fit right into what's going on already. Across the street from me is a trailer park. And I have a $400,000 home. And so it's what I've kind of come to the conclusion of is around the lake area, which a lot of this brush up is about, is that we're just not regulated like some other areas. Say, for instance, in Bentwood, you would expect a certain kind of neighbor, and there are house regulations, what sizes and all of that. But I looked at the property values, and say, for instance, on Kings Road, there are 2 large houses valued at over $1 million each. In the middle of them, there are maybe some houses that are $200,000, $300,000, and right along in this area, there are houses in value from $69,000 to over $1 million. There are some that are weekend rentals. There are some that are, it looks like they're set up in trust maybe for their families. And so they have people in and out. They have their friends in and out. Other people borrow their houses. So we have a lot of activity going on in the lake. And plus it's the lake. We service San Angelo, and so a lot of different people come out of there. So it's a lot of different activity. And for instance, my neighbor, I have one that's very loud, and they love to have parties. And their garage is right near my bedroom, and so I get a lot of parties in my bedroom from them. They have loud dogs. I have a person across the canal that has a tent set up permanently because they like to stargaze. So we may have these problems, but it's not because of STRs. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Anna Martinez, and we are in favor of short-term rentals. Let's put everything aside and think what is best for the city of San Angelo. Lakes are for recreation and enjoyment. Lake Nasworthy is one of the first lakes that you see on the Texas map that serves all of West Texas. The city of San Angelo is one of the few cities in the state of Texas that is midpoint for many friends and family that come together and reunite. How many people today rent short-term rentals? Many. And yes, we are putting heads in beds. What are short-term rentals about? Family and friends that go on vacation travel from so far away, and they can stay in one whole house with their loved ones. Statement number 1, a customer said to me, "What a great way to introduce tourism to the city of San Angelo. And why not? Why would we say no to boat race sponsors that want to stay at our lake house? Why would we say no to military families that like to come visit their loved ones at Goodfellow? Why would the city of San Angelo say no to tourism and revenue?" Statement number 2, an employee at my dentist office and I were discussing short-term rentals. And so she said her mother had a neighbor that had a short-term rental at LBJ Lake. She told me they were the most upkept houses she could have in that neighborhood. Okay, if LBJ Lake can have short-term rentals, then why not at Lake Nasworthy? Like a local realtor said, why would the city of San Angelo spin their wheels to set regulations when ordinances are in place? If there is an issue at a short-term rental, then why not call the police and let our fine San Angelo Police Department do their job? Short-term rentals have been in existence for at least a decade. The people that stay here have a high quality of life. Stats show not a single police report has been filed during their stay as a short-term rental. So, why is everyone so concerned now? Why is this such a big issue? Okay. We are adults.
Ma'am, we're running over time.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I'm Stephen Short, and I'm a resident of Santa Rita. And there seems to be a lot of emotions attached to this logical argument about whether we're pro-police or military. And to me, this seems like a zoning issue because we're dealing with businesses. We already have zoning regulations and ordinances on the book. I live in Santa Rita. I can't start a dairy farm out in my backyard. Y'all would come after me for that. So I think we need to focus on the laws that we have on the books now, enforce those laws rather than going and making new ordinances that we can't enforce. So that's how I feel about that.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, sir.
My name is Frank Francis. My wife and I, Becky, own Control Quarters. Our vacation home is located at 305 West Avenue A. We started our business December 2012. Our first guest was in February of 2013. We have been paying hotel tax from the very beginning. We are a member of the Chamber of Commerce. Our vacation home is zone RS2. We have had no contact with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has proposed regulations. I believe some of these regulations do not take into consideration the different homes and neighborhoods in our city. For example, our vacation home and some private homes in our neighborhood do not have off-street parking. Another example of gatherings of more than 20. Directly across the street from us is the Girl Scout Hall. They rent the building for events. Frequently, they have large gatherings. Recently, there was over 40 vehicles parked in the street legally and more than 100 people in attendance. We do not have a problem with this and had no complaints from our guests. These are just two examples that the regulations proposed cannot be forced on all vacation rentals. We have improved our vacation home and property and will continue to do so. Our property value has doubled, if not more. Over the years, we have communicated with our neighbors and never had any opposition to what we are doing. They have been supportive and thank us for our improvements. I believe our vacation rental enhances the historical, cultural, and community features, giving people from other areas the opportunity to be a part of the neighborhood and experience San Angelo. I feel that vacation rentals should be allowed throughout the city so people can experience all the neighborhoods in our great city. There should be no regulations imposed on them. There are laws in place for the homes and the people who occupy them, and I believe they are adequate enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Candace. I'm a homeowner in Santa Rita. Appreciate y'all's time. I'd like to read a letter from Mike Polston of Austin, Texas, who couldn't be here with us today, but he did want to share his story with you guys.
Ma'am, can we get your last name as well?
Lebo. Here's his story. An investor purchased a home across the street from our home in May 2015. He quickly installed furniture, large TVs, a pool table, and several large video games in the home. He advertised the STR on HomeAway.com and stated it sleeps 27. We saw an average of 20 people move in every weekend starting in July of 2015. Half of the customers were young men intent on having a good time. There also were multiple families and 2 vans of elderly men. It was very clear that this pattern of our new customers moving in every weekend was part of the STR business model. Upwards of 400 to 500 customers every year at our property. Long weekends are the prime targets of these models. I participated in a press conference in Austin in summer of 2015, sponsored by one of our council members. This event accelerated the city's wide awareness of dramatic growth and nuisance for the STR party homes. These houses, including the one across from my home, were popping up in all areas of Austin in the middle of established residential neighborhoods. There are 4 distinct financial stakeholders for the STR Type 2 business models. The owners of the STRs generally receive significant revenue from their customers. This revenue appears around the same as branded hotels and motels on per night basis. The STR marketing companies generate significant revenue from the STR owners. They collect fees, advertising, and getting a percentage from each STR customer contract. The city derives no significant revenue. Most STR customers will purchase food and prepare their meals in the STR property. The Texas hotel tax is generally the same since the STR takes revenue away from the branded commercial hotels in the city. Finally, the adjacent neighbors derive no benefit. They may actually discover that it will be very difficult to sell their home if they are adjacent to the STR commercial hotel. Finally, I would offer some advice to the San Angelo City Council if they vote to allow for STR unbranded commercial hotels in residential neighborhoods. They will significantly increase the number of code enforcement staff. They will need to significantly increase the legal staff to handle lawsuits, which is now commonplace in Austin and their cities trying to manage the STR business model. They will be spending a lot more time trying to manage the STR business model just so the small group of wealthy investors can generate more wealth at the expense of city and its residents. I'd just like to say that I pose the STR, and my mom has a STR in her neighborhood, and I have my nephews that are there. I've seen people watching them that they wouldn't normally be there, and also damage to the property there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Pat Powell. As you can tell, I'm a rule follower. I will quit at the 3-minute mark. Start with, I'm glad to see the police chief is here. We had 32 incidents of broken glass in windows on Friday reported in the paper, and I'm sure it was people that were staying at vacation rentals. So we need to get a list of who was at vacation rentals. Everybody's seen their values of their property tax statements. Has anybody seen anybody's property values go down? I haven't noticed any. Mine continue to comply. Been called that I was a crook, that I'm doing this because I'm wealthy or I'm getting it. I think some of you guys know I'm not really wealthy. I'm doing this because it was a way for me to enjoy a place on the lake and have an opportunity for somebody to help pay for the expenses. And everybody says, well, you should have checked with the city. You should have known that these were illegal. These are illegal. These are illegal. I want to report from the memo from John James to the Planning Commission on November 16th. He said, under the city's current zoning ordinance, these short-term rentals are not treated any differently than any other single-family home. And then we progress. We met with him in February. And he said they were not illegal, that we just wanted some groundworks to where we could monitor the situation, make things, make sure everything's operating the way it should. We told him we didn't need an ordinance because there was already ordinances on the file for police, for trash, for parking, for noise, everything's there. Then on March 21st, from John James to the Planning Commission, says, under the current ordinances, renting a house for a weekend is no different than renting a house for a month or a year. That was sent to them on March 21st. And then we get to April 18th, 2016 from John James. In bold, it says, short-term rentals of less than 30 days are treated as a hotel-motel use, which is not allowed within residential zoning districts. So how are we supposed to know how we're supposed to run our business when you can't tell us what it is or not? We asked, they told us what to do, we did it. November it was great, February it was great, March it was great. I didn't see y'all changing any laws between March and April. And that's the different direction we're getting. There's nothing wrong with this. You have any questions for me? I'll be glad to answer anything I can for you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Next. Good morning.
My name is Joe Hark. I live off of Southland
Pull it down a little. That's it.
Is that better?
That's better.
All right. I live off of Southland, back behind Sam's. I don't have any data to bring to you. All I have is a personal experience I would like to share. A few years ago, I was invited by an extended family member. We are very close. But I was invited to go and spend some time with her and her family at a rental house. I will say I was looking forward to it and basically did have a wonderful time. But I started having some misgivings that day. We are talking about a God-fearing Christian family. Not only are they law-abiding citizens, but one member of the family is a police officer. So we're talking about someone who, had they been vetted, would have passed with flying colors. During my time there, and I'm talking about just a few hours, I saw one of the toddlers spill some juice. It was wiped up with a paper towel, but upon requesting a mop or something, the grandmother, well, they'll mop it up when they clean the house. The boys in the family wanted to have some fun with the river and set up a slide device. And in doing so, they encroached upon the property next door. Did they damage it? No. But they did not ask permission. They just did it. I saw substances going into the river, not illegal, but messy. That's not the kind of experience I would want to see happen to anyone here. I would not want to see this happen to the lake. Is this something that happens all of the time? No. But I think it is an example that, however you scrutinize your guests, things are still going to happen. I am opposed to the STRs, and I appreciate your time and patience in listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I want to make one comment and address it's not the issue before you all. I want to speak up for Mr. James, who was criticized by the speaker just before this on some of his memos. I'm a lawyer, and I find your city ordinance difficult to read. And so Mr. James is new to the city, and I just say, even as a lawyer, when I get your ordinances out, it's difficult to read, and I can easily see him misreading some part of the ordinance out of good faith and not have any deliberate effort to mislead or anybody else. And so I do want to speak up for him in that regard. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I'll be brief. My name is Arlene Frank, and I live on Lake Nasworthy. The last 2 weeks, I've taken a petition around my neighborhood and talked to all of the people who were there. I found they were all opposed. They didn't object to the well-run bed and breakfast that's in our neighborhood, but no one else wanted an STR. We currently have 3 in our neighborhood that are running, and they're not a positive impact at all. If they were, I would participate because I could use the income. I have children in my neighborhood. There's just the atmosphere that's created by many of the people who come in there are not conducive to raising a family. It's not fair to ask us to police your property if you have an STR. And that would be my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name's Melanie Barrera. I wasn't going to speak today, but I keep hearing the same thing over and over again. This is not just a lake issue. You know, if this passes, this is for the entire city of San Angelo. I personally have a family. I live in Southland. I would have never dreamed that the thought of having a short-term rental would even be an issue. But I just wanted to reiterate, it's not just a lake issue or a vacation issue. It can impact way further than that as time goes on. So that's all. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Debbie Wilson. I live on Lake Nasworthy, have for 25 years, I guess now. My personal feelings, and that's all I can ever say, is my personal feelings is that I've had very positive experiences. I've stayed in VRBOs all over United States, and probably 15 or 20. And I've always had a positive experience. And I think they can be done properly. I think this is really not a yes or no issue. I think it's a yes, but how do we do it right? And it's going to be checks and balances. It's going to be enforcement. And I commend the city for bringing it to our attention and getting feedback from all of us, because there's a way to do it and there's a way to do it right. And I'll be one that you can pick up the phone and call me. I'll tell you my experiences, but it's all about setting up expectations on the homeowners that own the homes that want to rent them out short-term. I was always given directions. I was told expectations, and I'm a law abider, which I think most people are. There's always going to be some bad apples, but there has to be, like I said, checks and balances. And if there has to be a fine given to the homeowner, they're going to pass that on to the tenants. But anyway, I think it's a yes. And I think it's how do we do it right? Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Good morning.
Morning, Mayor and Council. My name is John Bass. Real briefly, my issue with the STR, I think, settles back down to an absentee owner. And that's really what it's about. The bed and breakfast setup works fine. You have someone on premise, supposedly, to keep in check everything that's going on. If the STR concept worked without infringing on neighbors, Holiday Inn wouldn't need a desk manager. Marshall wouldn't need staff at the KOA. They just put the keys out, take their credit card, life goes on. But that's not the case. People go to a property, they want to spend the night, they want to enjoy it. There needs to be someone there other than the next door neighbor. Because the next door neighbor who ends up being the policeman. City can't manage all the activities that go on a property, like the dogs, things like that. Anyway, absentee owners, they're fine. If they want to use their property, renting it out to someone else just doesn't work. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Good morning.
Morning. My name's Joy Higgins. Thank you all for serving our great city. I currently, I live in Wall, Texas, but when I first moved to town, I moved and lived in San Angelo. But before that, I owned and operated a bed and breakfast in Mason. And it was a great situation to be able to be on site. It was just right outside my back door, but I had a really strict screening, and for everybody that was a guest in my home, because it was just a few feet outside of my door where my kids were sleeping and my family was staying. And so if somebody wasn't willing to give me all the information or that I needed, that I would feel safe, then they were not going to be a guest in my bed and breakfast. And I feel like the issue is somewhat what the speaker before said, is that the short-term rentals are not owned necessarily by people that live on the property. And I'm in complete support of the bed and breakfasts that we have in town. I think that there are plenty of options to be able to share the lake and other great parts of our community through people that own the bed and breakfasts. And it seems like we already have a great compromise in place because we do allow bed and breakfasts. And I know as a community we support those. And so those are things that we can all know that there is somebody on site that's watching their property, and they're going to have that special consideration as well, knowing that the people that are renting their property, that's going to affect them because they are next door. And a lot of times I think that if I owned a short-term rental, that I may not be as careful with who I was renting to because it's not going to affect my direct house. And so whether my kids are sleeping across town, maybe I can rent to these people, take a credit card over the phone, and never even meet them by face. And I think there's a big difference in that. And I think the people that we're hearing from that own these are not directly affected. And I understand that there are many people that take great pride and and have good short-term rentals, but it's the ones that we can't control that really do not have the same goals in mind. And I'm looking to buy a house in San Angelo. I've bought many houses. I've bought and sold houses over the past 12 years here locally as investment properties, and purchased a home on the lake and ended up owning it for a very financially uncomfortable 2 years, and would have really thought about considering that option of short-term rentals. But I think because I got myself into that situation doesn't mean that my neighbors should have had to pay the price and not have the comfort of knowing that who they're going to have in their neighborhood every night from week to week to week. And I think it's a situation that we need to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Thank you for hearing us. My name is Shirley Getz, and I do live on the lake, but I do agree this is not just a lake issue. And I understand our police chief is here, and he can be a witness for me. But he was head of the lake patrol out there. And I've dealt with a bar for 2 years. It was zoned a convenience store, but he ran it as a bar. This was never enforced. There was no one to check this. Why? But at the same time, I have personally lived by what turned out to be an STR. And it's about an acre, and his entire front yard, and I did not take a picture, God forgive me, but was filled with tents and campers and people and cursing and drinking. And I could go on forever as to the problems. And let me tell you, our police department does not have the people to enforce this. Everybody's correct, everybody. It's the neighbors that are going to have to enforce it. How would you like to have a bar across the street from you and nobody do anything about it? The police did what they could, but it didn't stop it. How would you like to have an STR by you? You can't let your grandchildren get out, even in the yard, because the cursing is so loud. Don't you think our police department has enough to do than to answer those calls? And believe me, and I'm 100% because my husband was a police officer for 32 years, there are priorities for them. There are priorities above and beyond loud music and drunk people and cursing and things of that nature. So who's going to enforce it? Are y'all going to? And I know Ms. Farmer and I are retired apartment operators. And living on property, you could not keep up with who was in all those apartments. Am I correct? So are these people, and I understand where they're coming from as far as making money and let other people pay off their properties. But they don't live there. They don't know what's going on. They don't hear this. They're not up all night long. Vacationers do not have the same sleeping habits you do or your children do that go to school. This isn't just a lake problem. This is all over our city, and we expect you to take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Leslie Brigg, and City Council, Mayor, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I had a lot of notes, but a lot of what I was going to say has already been said, so I'll cut it down. I've lived on Lake Nasworthy since 1997. I lived 3 doors down from an STR. The neighborhood has definitely changed. Once it was quiet, now it's like living.
Use the microphone, ma'am. Pull it
Okay.
down, please. Or pull it down to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now it's like living next to a hotel. Different people are always coming and going. The house I'm referring to has 1.5 baths. The backyard is very small. We have had more than 25 vehicles parked in front of this house, plus vehicles in the drive with over 50 people at one time in the backyard. People urinate in the yard. We have seen this firsthand. I have grandchildren, small grandchildren. Think about this. There is no one to regulate these ordinances. I don't think you would want an STR next to you with the drinking, with the cursing. We've even had 10:30 at night. We've had people shooting guns, 22s, target practices going into the island across from us. We have boats and jet skis flying in. Our grandchildren, our children are swimming, and there is no one to regulate this. And the noise level, we used to sleep with our house open. Now we cannot do that because of the radios, because of the wakeboard boats that have the loudspeakers. And so I ask, please do not allow STRs in San Angelo. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, I think it's finally your time, sir. You have waited patiently.
I'm going to have to, this is going to be an abbreviated version of what I originally had planned to say, because almost all of my points have already been discussed, and you made up the rule, no repetition. But my name is Mike Mitchell Sr. I'm a Lake Nasworthy resident here to oppose this STR ordinance, which I have come to describe as the Residential Neighborhood Evaluation Ordinance. It is not an inherent right, property right, to do whatever you want with your owned property. We have laws, zoning, and ordinances that govern these issues by municipality according to their needs and planning goals, along with the rights and expectations of the property owners who are currently there, and the rights and expectations that they had when they purchased their property. I live in a small neighborhood on Kings Road, and we have experienced the intrusion of bothersome strangers, excessive noise, excessive drinking, constant profanity, parking all over the street and blocking the street. Emergency vehicles couldn't get down. People had difficulty getting in and out of their driveways. Luckily, the 2 that were in our neighborhood are no longer in operation. If you approve this basically unenforceable ordinance, the city is opening up a can of worms with both continuing neighborhood problems and potential legal challenges. I respectfully urge you to reject this ordinance. Thank you. A minute 18 left.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Hi, I don't
envy you guys sitting up there right now. But I'm Kim Lebo, and I currently live in a neighborhood that there's an STR, and I'm not going to go into everything that everyone else has said as well. But one of the things that I did want to talk about is I've been a realtor for over 25 years now. I am not speaking on behalf of the Association of Realtors. This is my personal thoughts. And one of the things people have talked a little bit, but not a lot about, is the debate over the home values and what happens to the houses. Now, again, I'm a realtor, and I can suggest to my clients a range of prices and what could help them the most to sell their house in a reasonable amount of time. I'm not an appraiser, and those are the ones that actually give their opinions of the price value. And when they do that, they usually will come out and use the sales comparison approach, and that's where they use the comparables within a neighborhood, like properties. And so I went and I reached out to some appraisers, and I talked to them if this would hurt property values. And what I got is that directly, no, because if they go and they are valuing a property, they're not going to know what the next door neighbor is. So it's not going to take an effect there. But you do have these two scenarios. If you've got an investor, he's going to see a profit in that property, and he's going to see what is happening. So yes, that will drive the value up if you look at it that way. The unfortunate part of that is going to drive out what brings these people here to live in a neighborhood. It's going to drive away the actual neighbors. It's going to put a drain on some of the properties that are available for our current renters, our long-term renters. In San Angelo right now, that's 41% of our population is renters, so it's taking away from them. Now, if you look at the other side, the people that actually want to come into these neighborhoods and live in these neighborhoods, and they think of them as a typical neighborhood, and they want to come in and they want neighbors. The average person that comes in, they're going to say, if they know that that's a short-term rental, they don't want to live next to it. That's going to make that property stay on the market longer. And in order to sell it, typically you're going to have to reduce the price of that home so that it can sell in a reasonable amount of time. Now what you've done is you have created a comp for the appraiser to use for the next houses in that neighborhood to sell. So it's very hard to get actual statistics. The lake, you can't use that because the values are all over. I mean, price per square foot, you're looking $70 a square foot up to $704 a square foot. You have lake lease lots and not lease lots. So you can't use that. The ones that are in town, you can't really find out the addresses. If I go to Airbnb, I don't know actually what those addresses are. So to be able to get good statistics here locally, I can't do that. So the big thing is I can tell you I don't want them. Bottom line, I want neighbors in my neighborhood. Thank you.
Next. Next, going twice. Yes, ma'am. Good to see you up walking so well.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm sure we're on a first name basis. Thank you for having me come and speak. My name is Suzanne Daniel. I am a retired teacher. I do live in Santa Rita. I've been a single person and a single parent for most of my life, and I do own my home. I did have help. My parents bought the house, and I was a renter from my parents for 10 years. It took me that long to accumulate enough money to purchase the house from them. So I own the house. I pay insurance and taxes on it and the upkeep on it. Some of these people up here are crying about how they need the extra income because they're near retirement and they can't afford to stay in their house on their fixed income that they will have when they retire. Well, my answer to them is perhaps maybe they didn't plan enough ahead of time when they were younger to anticipate what it was going to cost to live on their retirement. The next thing is maybe they bought a house that they can afford when they're working, but they can't afford it when they're retired. So maybe they need to downsize, buy a cheaper house so that they don't have to stay awake at night worrying how they're going to keep the house that they have. Another thing, if they need the extra income, I'm sure that some of them could go to work at maybe McDonald's or Burger King, or they could work from Walmart, or they can be like me. They can substitute teach. I'm a retired teacher. I've been retired 16 years, and I've been subbing for 12 of those 16. And I will probably do it until either I lose my marbles or I drop dead. But that's how I afford to stay in my home. And these people, if they don't want to do that, why don't they get a reverse mortgage? They can do that. So there are solutions to this. They don't have to go and be renting their house out or their rooms out. They don't have to do that to get extra income. There are other ways to do that. So I think we need to remember we're not Fredericksburg, we're not Austin, we're not California, we're San Angelo. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Ted Logan. I'd like to thank you all for your participation and your work. It's a great job y'all have taken on, and you do well. I come here as a concerned citizen, a resident of the lake, and also head of the Architectural Committee on the Homeowners Association. A lot of what I wanted to say has been said, of course. What I would like to reiterate, I've had several complaints and communications with people in the last year. A lot of them don't want to call the police. A lot of them don't want to complain. But anytime these STRs seem to be next door, 2 doors down, there's a parking issue, there's a garbage issue, there's a noise issue. And I don't know that these things can be enforced. And we, as homeowners at the lake, the city designated these RS1s. That's single-family residence. They did that in 2000. They did that for a reason. They didn't want commercial enterprise. They didn't want rental enterprises at the lake, I assume. And I feel like to safeguard the residents and the homeowners of the lake, we need to not have STRs, citywide or at the lake. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Trish Jordan, and I'm the president of the Homeowners Association out at Southridge, and I am not speaking for Southridge at this time. I'm speaking on my own personal behalf, although there's several of us here. I think pretty much everything has been said. There's no enforcement. That's my main concern. And there are statistics to prove that crime does go up. I've got reams of paper back there, but I didn't want to bother you with it. I know you've had a lot of information from both sides. I think there is not anything in the Nasworthy area to show that, because I've met with some of these people and they have tried to resist calling the police. They've tried to police the thing themselves. I will also remind you that you got a petition from us that Ms. Lebo gave you that has over 250 signatures of people that are against the STRs. And last but not least, there is a difference between everyday behavior and vacation behavior. I'm a calm, cool, collected person, but when I go on vacation, I cuss like a sailor and I drink like a fish. Thank you.
I'd like to go on record. I want to go on vacation with her.
And stay in an STR? Anyone else care to public comment on this before we close this portion of the agenda? This is the last opportunity. If you have public comment, if you wish to speak, this is the time because I'm just about to close it. Public comment has been closed. We have heard the arguments, both sides. And now I guess it's time that we talk together and make a decision here. Does anyone want to start? You want me to start? I do have some opinions. It's wherever we want to start. You want to start it?
Well, I'd love to, but I first want to remind everyone that this is a public hearing today. This is a hearing, and I don't see anything on the agenda that says that we make a decision today. Lord help us, there's been a lot of information that has been given out, and I certainly, for one, would like to come up with a solution, not a yay or nay, but a solution. To me, this is a zoning issue, period. I don't know that this has gone before the Zoning Commission as of yet, have not seen anything to say what their recommendation would be or not be. And again, the city did a few years ago out at the lake to talk about all the different zoning issues we had out there and the different areas and what should be recommended for changes. And I don't recall that coming back to us just yet, that it's in the works of things that we are looking at because we know we've got problems with zoning issues. I go on vacation, I stay in STRs. I go to Possum Kingdom, and I go to Horseshoe Bay, and I go to Rio Doce, New Mexico, and I go to Lake Tahoe, and we stay in an STR. We go as a family vacation. And no, there's not a lot of drinking, and there's not a lot of cursing because my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren go with us, and we are water lovers. We love the sport. We love to surf and lay in the sun and have a good time. But we also put up a very hefty deposit at the places we stayed, $2,000 to $2,500 for a weekend. And I assure you, I want my money back on the deposit. So I'm not going to do anything to go against the rules of the property or the neighborhood to be thrown out immediately because I have broken a rule. I want my deposit back, so therefore I want to be a good occupant, a good renter. I also see this as a ownership problem. To me, the issue is the landlords, and landlords meaning good lords of the land is the way I learned it. And unfortunately, we have a lot of absentee owners who are not good landlords. They do not take care of the land, and we have ways of dealing with that. Then is when you file your complaints and do the proper paperwork to go through the proper authorities to have those complaints settled. And if you have to take it to a civil court, then you should. We as a council should not have to appear for you in a court on a civil complaint. That is you as the complaining party to take that owner to court over some of these issues. I believe that should be done. I don't want anybody facing anyone themselves on a loud party, loud noise, cursing issue, destruction of property. That's what I believe that we have the police department for. And yes, they have a lot more important things to do, but that is also what they're there for. And we should be utilizing the service and not afraid to call the police. You know, if I have an STR, I'm going to have, like the lady provided with us, an application process. You're going to sign an application, and I'm going to get your driver's license number and your social security numbers, and I'm going to run a background check on you, and I'm going to run a criminal history check. But that's being a good shepherd of the land, a good landlord. And I can't regulate or govern people to be good landlords. But as a community, we can set an example, we can set a restriction of what we will allow and we won't allow. And I do believe that there is a compromise here for everyone if we sit down and look at this a little bit longer than we've been looking at it, and certainly a little longer than just 2 hours this morning listening to what you definitely don't want or you definitely do want. There can be a happy medium. I think there's experienced enough people in our community that would have some very good and useful ideas and protections, and there's some very good, experienced people in the city, in the real estate, the planning, and here on the council with experience that could work out these issues. If you know of a way to force a person to obey the law, you need to share it with us. You know, we can sit up here and write up all the regulations and the restrictions and the rules, but it doesn't mean they're going to be obeyed. And that puts us in a very difficult situation. And I firmly believe in less government in my personal business, and my private property is my personal business, as long as I operate it within the confines of the law, the zoning, and what is there. If I want to put a pup tent in my yard for my great-granddaughter to run in one end and out the other end, it's my right, and I'm going to do it. If I want to paint my house polka dots, that's my right. My neighbors aren't going to be real happy, but it is my right as a property owner. And I just think that the people here in San Angelo welcome others and visitors, and we want it. But I think we can find a happy medium to protect ourselves, our city, and our homes while still welcoming visitors to our city. The one thing that we have that is a little unique and a little difficult to work around and with, Lake Nasworthy, as someone mentioned, is a public lake. It's not a private lake. There's not a private homeowners association out there that is private. You still have public streets, public services, and all of that has to be taken into consideration, whether we want to or not. Those are my suggestions today. This is our first hearing on the matter, and there's several issues to be ironed out before we can put this to bed, in my opinion.
The way I read this, Ms. James, even though it is a first public hearing, we have the authority to make a vote on this. All ordinances must be read and voted on twice.
That's correct.
So as a public hearing, we can vote on this today if we choose to vote on this ordinance, and then it would be completed as a second hearing. So we can vote today. Is this correct, ma'am?
That is correct. It is posted as the first reading of an ordinance. If you vote and it doesn't pass, then it won't come back.
That's good. Well, I'd like to get this thing over with. I'm tired of fighting this. Mr. Gossett, I appreciate you big full-page ad to the paper with my telephone number and my name. I did get some calls. I spent several hours this last couple of days answering them. I thank you, sir. I hope someday to be able to return that favor. Probably I received 15 to 20 calls from those that wanted the STRs, and I probably received about the same amount of calls from those that did not want the STRs. I've had probably 20 emails both ways. I've had letters both ways, and really it's about a 50-50 proposition. If people knew in this city the laws and the restrictions and the ordinances we have written in the last 4 years that have taken rights away from them as property owners, I honestly think that they would be appalled at what we have taken away. And if we continue taking rights away from property owners for the next 4 years as we have the last 4, the only right you're going to have as a property owner will be the right to pay taxes. And we are getting very, very close to that situation. And really, this socialism needs to swing back the other way and to give the people that own their property and pay the taxes and the mortgage, give them a right to do with it what they choose to do. I live in Lakeview. I live at stone's throw from the Coliseum. I know what STRs are because the whole month of February I deal with people with trailers parked all over. I also live within a mile of 2 low-end trailer houses or trailer mobile home parks. I know what STRs. I'd rather have an STR and the neighbor from Hades for one weekend than I would to have that long-term lease and have that neighbor from Hades year-round. So I do not see a problem with STRs. I'm going to share with you one more story that I heard this week, a lady that called me. This was an elderly lady, and she wasn't crying, and she wasn't bawling, and she wasn't threatening, but she said, let me tell you my situation. She said, my husband and I decades ago bought a lot at the lake, or leased a lot at the lake, and we built our cabin. And we had planned on living in this cabin until we retired, and then on after until they carried us to the cemetery. This was our plan. And we worked hard, and we put money back, and we built a very sizable savings account so that when we retired, we would be able to live and live comfortably. But the husband got sick. And he got sick in a disease of which he will not recover. And they were forced to move into assisted living. That savings account is already dwindling at a rapid, rapid rate. She said, now I'm in danger of losing the cottage that we have built at the lake that I want to go back to when I have to after I have buried my husband. And she says, I am leasing this thing out for a couple of weekends a month, and I'm able to get enough money back that I can pay my leases and my taxes and my insurance, and I'm able to keep my house. She said, if I don't have this, I will lose my house, just like we've lost our living, just like we've lost our retirement, and just like we've lost our savings. So I hear a lot of people talking about the inconvenience of STRs, but I hear this lady talking about survival, using her property for survival. And it's a real eye-opener. And we can make the greatest and the best of plans, but we never know what tomorrow is going to bring. I know when my daddy came down with the Alzheimer's back in 2008, I saw the impact that it had on my family. This can happen, and it has become an act of survival. Ordinances are citywide. They don't just affect the lake, but 90%, maybe 95% of the people I have heard today are from the lake and from the lake only. If we make an ordinance, this covers everybody in this city. I think that the ordinance that John James has written, I think is a good ordinance. I think it's going to make everybody in here mad on both sides, and that to me is a good compromise. It's something that we will work. It's something that we can restrict. There are some conditions involved. We do have police presence, and if you're having a problem with your neighbor, you need to call the police and have them come out and deal with this. I like the 2-year renewal so that we can keep up with these. I have more problems with long-term leases than I do short-term leases because they only last a couple of days. That's kind of my feeling on all of this. But the lady, when she spoke to me about her home as survival and being able to use her home and rent her home as her property that she owned to be able to save her home, really, really did get close to me. Who else wants to talk about this? Lane?
I do so. I see mainly 3 issues. You got your property rights issue, you've got your zoning issue, you've got your enforcement issue. We all have the property rights to do what we see fit with our property to a legal standard, and there's 2 sides of it. You also don't have the right to use it to operate a commercial business out of a residential home. That throws it into a zoning issue, which is the commercial zoning in a residential area. The third issue would be the enforcement that we are all worried about. Mostly everybody is worried about of how are we going to enforce this issue. I'd like to see code enforcement amped up beforehand with anything if this does pass. Code enforcement will have to be amped up to take care of the problems that we are seeing along with the police task force. The vetting process, I think there should be a across-the-board standard if this does go across, to where every landlord is required to vet every tenant in a way that the neighbors do know who is going to be staying next to them. I'd like the idea on adding the conditional use indefinitely with renewal with a striking process, and I say striking in a way that if it becomes a habitual problem with a specific short term, that they can rescind that permit, and it has to be legible excuses also. I learned last night at the town hall that HOAs are prohibited by the state from prohibiting leasing. What I don't agree with an HOA being superseded by a city, I think an HOA should be a subdivision to where a group of housing can form their own statutes, their CCRs, to where a group of people, if they buy together, I'll take Southridge, they should have the ability to say what is allowed in that area or not. You're not going to have a short-term rental in Village Park East or an area, a retirement area like that, to where someone can come in and rent it out in a retirement area. So I'd like to see the HOAs have a little bit more authority on that. And also have the issues, I've got a couple emails by military. And I've ran into this problem myself with my rentals. Military coming in for 2 or 3 week trainings, that if base housing is unavailable, a couple of them, usually officers, will want to look into renting out a house for that amount of time. That is an issue that I see if it is banned. But I think before we go any further, we need to work out some more issues that we're seeing, to where everybody can see a happy medium, and no one will have that neighbor next door with the short term that are partying it up all the time. You'll see that with the code enforcement amped up. But I think there should be some issues worked out beforehand.
I like to start off by saying that I appreciate everyone that's here. I've listened to the pros and cons. There's a lot of people that aren't here that are still part of the city that we do have to keep in mind that they are the city, and we will take that into consideration. To me, it's a choice. I see that everyone is entitled to do with their property as they see fit. If the homeowner wants to rent out their house, they're the ones that are going to get that consequence of it being torn up, having to pay for it when somebody leaves. I mean, to me, I think that we have more good people in San Angelo that would benefit in going out to the lake, and if they wanted to rent a place, could do so. I think that the people from out of town that see our city, that come to the boat races, that have a good time out at the lake, say, hey, I want to come back. I want to come back and spend the weekend over here. Those are the things that I'm looking at, the opportunity that we would be taking away from not only our citizens here in San Angelo, but other people from out of town. Today, in this day and time, people that have homes are very blessed. There's been a lot of people that have lost their homes, much less have a vacation home out at the lake. We have people that they don't do what we want them to do in our neighborhood. They don't take care of their yards the way we want them to. That doesn't give us the right to go and tell them, hey, we don't want you here. We don't have the privilege of having that much money to buy their house out to where we can keep it green if we want to, or keep it up the way we wanted it kept up. I believe that if I wanted my family to come visit me, that I would have the choice to say, hey, let's stay out at the home out at the lake. Because out at the hotels, you can't have a gathering there of 5, 6 people. It's just not comfortable. We have a lot that goes on in this city and events. And for us to take away that opportunity of them having the capability of renting short term is, to me, I don't feel that that's right. The other thing is, like the mayor said, someone at last night's meeting said, hey, I'd rather have a nuisance for 3 days than 365 days. I'm sure that if you were really honest and you'd look at your neighborhood, you'd feel the same way. You talk about not knowing who's going to move in next to you for 3 or 4 days. Some people don't even know their neighbors that have lived there 5, 10 years. I would like to see the people in the city that cannot afford to go out of town on vacation to be able to take their children out to the lake if they can at least afford that 3-day rental out there and let them have fun and enjoy it. Because I believe that that is what someone just said, and the mayor said again, this is a city lake. It's not privately owned. And I believe that if we do something like this, we're going to be taking this away from the citizens of San Angelo.
Eric? Well, a lot of what I'd like to say has already been said by council, so I will reiterate a few of the items. I know everybody sitting up here has spent numerous hours, many phone calls, emails, texts. Just in the last 24 hours, I've had 10 plus, 20 in the last week. I probably spent 60 plus hours on this one subject, both sides, looking at every place in the United States that has STRs and those states and cities that regulate them. I will have to say that I'm not a real big fan of putting another ordinance on the books that we probably are going to have some difficulty in enforcing. So from that perspective, citizens need to understand where I'm coming from. But I have been in some of these homes that today are operating as STRs. They are probably, in many cases, a lot better than some of the other homes that are at the lake. So I'm going to say that those people that are investing money in these things should have a way to recover those particular dollars. Traffic, I think traffic is an issue that we're going to have to address as a council, regardless of whether or not we approve this ordinance or not. Traffic at the lake, because those roads are probably not in as good a shape as some of the other roads that we have in the city, it's an item that we're going to have to address sooner than later. We'll say that the people that are operating as STRs today are doing a better job of promoting San Angelo and exposing visitors to San Angelo with that prospect of those people either moving here or returning at some point than many of us that are trying to promote this particular great city. This has been said more than once, but there are many people out there that have operated STRs that talk about a family gathering. A number of people will say, well, you can go to the hotel because you're only 68% out there. That's not the type of vacation that a lot of people want to have. They want to be able to visit with one another at the same place, not in a confined hotel room. So you may ask, how am I going to vote? I'm not sure I know right at this moment.
Marty?
Well, John, can you tell me, do we have any statistics on roughly how often they're rented out?
We don't. We did some research to try to find out how many are in the city currently, but we know some of those the owner lives in them, rents them out a few weekends in the summer. Others are almost exclusively short-term rentals, so it's everything in between. But in terms of how many and how many rent for what periods of time, we don't have that information.
Thank you. I basically see it as an issue of we can not do anything and it not be regulated and they go on, or we can put regulations in force and know where they're at and take care of them that way and oversee them. I don't necessarily agree that a person always has the right to do with his property whatever he wants to do. There should be regulations in place to confirm to make sure we know what's happening. So, but I see it as we can do nothing and keep going status quo, because I don't think as it stands right now we have the code enforcement to stop it. I think Lubbock's a fact of that with them. If what we heard was true, they have 72 and they don't allow them or whatever. But I think that's our two options. So I'll keep it brief.
Bill?
Excuse me. Well, what I believe is that if you buy a house in a residential area, it should remain as a residential area, and the city should not change the zoning after you bought a house there. Okay? I've heard, okay, since the ad was in the paper, I mentioned to you I got about 100 calls. One call was in favor. Since this started, maybe 200 or 300 calls and emails, 6 in favor. So I'd have to go with the vast majority of the population who don't want this and protect the residential neighbors and keep the neighborhood. That's where the families belong. That's not where businesses belong. That's the way I feel.
And I appreciate the presence of everyone that's here. I think this is the way grassroots democracy is supposed to work, and I appreciate you coming in. But I did take 100, which is about what I figured that, and they say that there's 200 that have signed this. But when you take 100 and divide it by 100,450, which is what the Census Bureau says, or the amount of citizens living in the city of San Angelo, that 100 people represent 0.000995552, or less than 0.09% of the population of San Angelo. And this ordinance will take care of 100% of the city of San Angelo, and not the 0.09% that is represented by 100 people. Or if you want to take 200, you can double it, and it's still a very, very small percentage of 1% of people. But yet the ordinance covers the entire city, all 100,000 of us, and I don't want to give up my right to rent my property, whether long-term or short-term, if I feel that's what I need to survive. And I don't think the other citizens of San Angelo want to give up their rights as well. So we can do one of two things, one of three things. Someone can move to approve this or to deny it, and we can vote on it if we can get a second. This will then give us the ordinance that will allow the STRs with conditions. And I think it's a good compromise. We can vote on it, and we can have this. We can vote it down, and we've got exactly what we've got right now, which allows short-term rentals, because people are allowed to rent for a month or a year or a day. And so we keep the same status quo that we have. Or,
Mr. Mayor?
The clarification there, the current does not allow under 30 days.
but it's been going on for so very long. You got a real problem. You start trying to enforce something.
Then what the current ordinance states is that anything under 30 days is a short term and it's not allowed.
Well, according to one man, that translation or that came about in April, but before April it was allowed. So we might have some differences of opinion.
I can't speak to that, but before April, we were until this complaint came in, we were unaware of issues, and we started addressing that at that point.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to inquire as to whether we can make a motion to postpone till we have a little more research.
That is another option. We can make,
Then I'll make that motion that we postpone until we have some more information knowing how it affects everybody in the city.
That
I'll
would
second that.
require republishing notices, I believe, in the paper. Is that right, John?
It's okay with me.
Another one-page ad?
We didn't do that
Don't do
one-page
another
ad.
one-page
We
ad.
didn't pay for that one-page ad, though. That wasn't us.
There are certain areas that do require some clarification. We talked about enforcement. Who exactly is going to be handling that? And I've met with Chief Carter briefly, and also James Flores, who's in charge of code enforcement. There are some issues that would have to be resolved if we do move forward with this. And I think postponing it would actually benefit us to make sure that we do have that ironed out as well.
And I need a second.
I'll second in an effort to gather this data, to get this enforcement and more data in that everybody needs to.
You have a motion, I do have a second till we postpone this.
Let me just make one comment that if you postpone it to a particular date, then we will not have to republish and renotice in the newspaper. If you just table it to a date uncertain, then we will have to republish it in the newspaper. So completely up to you, but if you know a time frame you want to table it until, that would also give all the citizens present a date that they know it's going to come back.
While we're looking at that, is short term, is the 30 days that we defined short term, is that any way the same as temporary?
No, that's different ordinances use terms differently, and so other ordinances we have use the term temporary, but that varies from ordinance to ordinance, so this is not really related to that.
Okay.
I understand that 30 days is a state, that the state sets that.
The reason we use 30 days, that's what almost every other city uses. It's also the threshold of when you have to pay the hotel tax and not.
Also, Mayor, as y'all look at this, if there are specific things, we've talked about additional information. If there's something specific that staff needs to get for you, if you could define that for us today, that would be helpful as well.
What date you want to postpone it, or you want to table it?
September 20th.
You'll add that as part of your motion?
Yes, sir.
Will you add that as your second, Blaine?
Second it.
Okay, if this goes through, then we will postpone this decision until the meeting on September 20th. That way we do not have to repost. And if this motion fails, then I need a motion to either approve or deny this, and we'll try and finish this up today or make the first reading today. Any other comment? We've already had public comment on this. Anything else on the postponement? Motion has been made. We postpone this to September 20th. Let's raise your hands on this, and all in favor of postponing, raise your hand. All that will deny postponing, raise your hand. We have 4 to deny. We have 3 to postpone. I need a motion one way or the other on this, either to deny this ordinance that he proposes or to accept the proposal that he has. I need a motion one way or another. And if I get no motion at all, then we go right back to where we were.
I move that we accept the ordinance.
I do have a motion to accept the ordinance as written. I do have a second. Marty and Lucy.
Mayor, would you like, John, there were a couple of other suggestions that he made you might want to consider. Do you want us to go back over those?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, in fact, a couple of you I heard mention that you like the idea of the 2-year renewal rather than a permanent conditional use. So if that's your desire, that would need to be part of the motion.
Would you add that, Marty?
Yes.
Would you second that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There was also the camping item.
That's right. The other issue that the original ordinance drafted included a prohibition on camping at a short-term rental. The Planning Commission recommended removing that, so without amendment, then camping would be allowed on a short-term rental.
How do you feel about that, Mr. Self? You want to allow camping?
I think we leave it just as it is. I mean, that as they put it in.
Camping would be allowed.
Yes.
You agree with that?
That's fine.
Anything else needs to be added or amended or subtracted? We've already had public comment, Ted. Thank you very much. Any other discussion on that?
Why don't we have a one-year renewal instead of a 2-year?
Well, he's gone to 2 years in the motion. The motion is for a 2-year. Anything else?
Mayor, this is the first reading. On this, at second reading, I will come forward and talk about the enforcement portion of it as well.
Every ordinance that is enacted in the city of San Angelo takes 2 readings. This is the first one. It does not take effect until there are 2. So this will probably be on our next meeting is when we will probably do the second reading. Do we have a motion to accept as presented?
Mayor.
Mayor.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Lane has a question.
I'd just like to say, I think there's too many items on this that affect too many lives. It goes both ways, so I just believe there needs to be a little bit more information before we go along with.
Do have a motion and a second, so it's got to be handled. All in favor of the motion as it has been made, please raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Motion fails. It is 11:55, and you say we have a scheduled phone call at noon. Let's take us into executive. Let's see. Closed session, executive session
Mayor.
under the Division of Government.
Just for clarification, are we going to when we come back into regular session, will we be addressing this with another motion, or is this item over?
As far as I'm concerned, the motion failed.
Yeah,
The
done.
motion failed. There is no provision, there is no short-term rentals with provisions. The motion failed, 4-3. It's over.
Another
I wanted to
motion
make sure
would
there
be
wasn't
in
going to
order.
be another motion on it.
Another motion could be made.
Another motion could be made. But
Executive session under the Division of Government Code, Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. A, Section 5510711A, consult with attorney when the governmental body seeks the advice of its attorney about pending or contemplated litigation regarding, number 1, the 2013 seal coating program contract, number 2, Templeton Construction Incorporated, number 3, City of San Angelo versus Lisa Carrasco, and number 4, Alsay Incorporated. B is Section 5510712, to consult with an attorney when the governmental body seeks the advice of its attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter regarding assignment of water rights on the Fords Ranch. It is 11:57. We are now in executive. 9 p.m. I'm calling this meeting back to order. The next item on the agenda, on the regular agenda, is item number B, which is consider adopting a resolution authorizing the San Angelo Police Department to apply for the body-worn camera program grant with a 25% match of $35,268.75, which is not yet budgeted, and designated city manager as the authorized official. Frank Carter's not here, but either one of y'all can handle it, can't you?
Yes, sir.
Give us your spiel on it, please, sir.
Okay. My name's David Howard, and let me start with a little bit of history. On December 1st of 2015, the police department obtained permission from council to apply for a grant that would allow for the purchase of body-worn cameras for officers. The grant application was for $190,000 with a 25% match of $47,500 by the city. In January of this year, we were notified that we were allocated $176,000, $343,75. The city match would be $35,268.75. We sent in a formal application for funding on the 15th of July, and on the 25th of July, we were notified that we needed to correct the dollar amount on the city match portion before the state will award the grant funds. And the grant would start August 15th, and we have a year from the start of the grant to complete the purchase. So that's where we stand.
Where do you think the money's going to come from, boss?
Mayor, at this point, we don't have the money identified. And if we do approve the resolution, it'll be with the understanding it's contingent on those monies being located or identified?
That's correct. We work with city staff on locating the funds.
Sounds reasonable. Anyone want to step out and Move to approve on the contingency.
I move to approve.
Hey, we have a motion.
I do like the.
Did I hear a motion from you, Bill?
Yeah.
Did I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
But I just wanted to state that I do believe the body-worn camera program is something that we definitely should move to and go toward. But money is tight, and I know the police always hear this, and it really is. We don't have this right now.
Sure, that's correct.
And where is she? Tina back there in the back is going to have to find it.
That's
And
correct.
it's tough, so knowing about it beforehand and budget is the better route to go, but I'll second
Yes,
the
ma'am.
motion.
I may have to go back to Crown Vics.
And I would like to say that I do see that there's a trend going across the state of Texas, and I believe this will eventually be mandated for us. So, anyway, that being said, that's all I have.
You have a motion, Bill Richardson said move to approve with the contingency, and I do have a second. Any further discussion on this from Council Harry?
Just one more comment. I kind of piggyback on what Charlotte had to say. I think this is probably a program that many cities need to move to. Fortunately, we've probably got a better relationship with the police department and the citizens than we do in some of the other cities in the United States. So I would say that this is really a tough year for dollars. And if city staff, the police department can locate this $35,000, I'm all on board. But it's going to be tough. And we may have to end up if we decide to do this, we may end up having to take money away from some other programs within the city. So, got a motion on the floor. I'll let you go with it, Mayor.
Public comment on this item? We'll call for the vote. Yes, come forward, please. When does the year start? I guess our year starts in October 1. That's when our fiscal year starts.
No, I meant the year for the get it done. August 15th.
Thank you. Further comment from the public? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, how many, what are you talking about on the body cams? I mean, how many of these would you purchase?
I believe it was approximately 90.
90?
90. Yeah, 99. Yeah, 99.
So then we'd have so many left to buy.
Active
for the
patrol
rest.
officers, that's correct.
It does get all the patrol officers?
Yes, it does.
Good.
I said, I believe, personally, I believe eventually that's the way things are headed. There was, April 23rd, there was a mandatory body cam bill introduced, and it did not pass legislation, but they did enact some legislation regarding guidelines for use of body cams for agencies that are using them currently, so.
I think the way that everything's going in the world, if we're going to be jumping ahead of the game, I think now's the time for that, if we can find the money.
It'll better public trust, and it's transparent. It's very good transparency.
Call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on it. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number C is discussion and possible action regarding the most recent increase of water rates in relation to the funding of future water projects. Bill
Mr.
Riley.
Mayor?
Yes.
This is my item that I had requested,
Yes, ma'am.
and I would like to move it to the budget session workshop in view of the length of time that we've had today on other items, if I may.
So you're pulling this item.
Yes, I am.
We could actually do the same with the next item as well, as they're both
Yes, the
water-related
next item
items.
as well.
Let's kill item C. And you want to kill item D as well, boss?
We'll take it to the budget workshop.
We'll kill item D. How about item E?
No, that one we do need to have, Mayor.
No.
Yes.
Item E is, we have killed item C, and item D, we'll move these things, we'll move them on and postpone them till a later date. Yes, sir? You're right, you're gonna have to.
And I need to discuss this with Bill as well.
Okay, we are going to postpone item number C. We may or may not be postponing item D because it is a public hearing, But we will at this time go to item E. Consider a record vote to propose a property tax rate and discussion regarding the fiscal year 2016-217 budget preparation. Ms. Tedwigan, you are on, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. We have before you today an opportunity to proceed with the budget process. We're very early, of course, in those discussions. What's before you today is just a quick brief on the budget process, and then moving into the best practices and truth and taxation items. So, as you're aware, we started budget preparation with budget staff in April and May. Moving into June, we began communications with the council in Friday packets, just to clearly communicate all the items going on with our budget, all the moving parts, including major funds and outstanding issues related to implementing the council priorities, and then other items to be considered for funding. We continued those memos through July. And then moving into August, we anticipate that the budget workshop scheduled for next week will have substantive discussion about the items that have been disclosed to y'all in the Friday packets. And so we expect that we'll talk about major funds and council priority items. So we're beginning our public hearings this month. And so as we draft the budget and we decide what resources we have available, one option to consider at this time is to take a record vote to propose a property tax. This is our intent that we are going to levy a property tax into the new year. The rate before you today can be considered, it's recommended by the state comptroller. It is not a requirement, but it is recommended, and it is something we have done historically to be really crystal clear with our citizens and our taxpayers. And so staff recommends the rate unchanged with 67.74 cents per $100 valuation with the maintenance and operations part of the budget, and 9.86 cents for debt service, for a total rate unchanged at 77.6 cents. The local government code does require that we estimate a tax rate at this time. And so moving into next week, what we would do is discuss those council priorities, the additional need related to those, and other funding needs as identified by directors and city manager.
You need a vote today to accept the tax rate of .7760 per $100 valuation, which is the same tax rate as we've had for the last 2 or 3 years.
Correct.
We are not increasing the tax rate.
That's exactly correct. And moving forward in the budget cycle, we can always change if we decide to lower or change this rate. We certainly can. This is just very early, very preliminary, the best way to handle it.
We can't go up, yeah.
Correct.
We can go down if we decide we need to, but we cannot go up when we approve this today over 7760.
That's correct.
All right. I need a motion to approve the tax rate 16 and 17 budget year at .7760 per $100 valuation.
Move to approve as presented.
Who to get first? I get second? Okay, Charlotte approved. Charlotte makes a motion, Harry approves. Any council discussion on this item? Do I have public comment on this item? Yes, sir.
Mayor, Council, my name is Steve Hampton. I'm here to congratulate you on considering not to raise the taxes. I think that's very important for the health of the city. I know that you're tight on budgets. I heard last meeting that it was raised, we need more money from this side of the room, and I can agree and I can see it, but I think that the best government has to live on what they make and do the best they can. I also consider the vote for the policemen, the cameras, a very good consideration, but it's hard to make those decisions. I think another thing that you need to do in conjunction with this hold the line on the taxes is to you need to get with your appraisal board and ask them to take it easy on the citizens, because this morning, what did you hear over and over again? We are retired and we're having trouble and we're looking for other ways to pay our bills, our tax bill, and I think even though it was only 100 people and a small percentage of the whole community, I think the whole community and those 100 people represent many, many, many others. And so I would ask you to consider treading softly, and maybe we need to cut back on some of our river proposals. I think the pie in the sky on calling tourists to visit this community is not working. Every town in the whole area thinks that they're going to be a tourist center, and it doesn't happen that way. San Angelo has many more benefits than many. That it's not a destination all in itself. Another thing I was going to bring up, but now I've senior moment has hit me, so I'll take my seat. But I appreciate your consideration of these things.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Any further public comment on this item? I will call for the vote. All in favor of keeping the tax rate where it is and has been at 77.60 per $100 valuation, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Put a 7-0 on that one, please, sir. Okay, we will be doing D because it is a public hearing. D is the first public hearing and consideration of an ordinance amending Appendix A, Article A8.000, monthly landscape volumeric water rates. Mr. Riley.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This is dealing with the non-residential landscape rates. Prior to us changing the rates and the rate structure at the beginning of the year, the schools, universities, and city-owned facilities in the non-residential landscape were exempt from the tiered rates or the excessive use fees. And when we went through the process of the rate study, one of the things we did was to try to clean up, if you will, the rates, because there were multiple tiers. And in fact, in the landscape, this particular rate class, there were 5 or 6 different tiers that just had small amounts of usage, and there just was not that much usage. So it didn't make sense to have all of those rates, and it made it a whole lot harder to administer or even explain. So what we did as part of that process was change this to 2 tiers, the majority of the usage being in that range, the 0 to 89, and then a small percentage of it in the greater than 89,000 gallons a month. When we did this change, we took the exemption out for those users. That did kind of put an undue burden, if you will, on those users. Even though, again, the majority of their usage is in the 0 to 89, when we looked at the historical usage and applied that, it didn't have a significant impact, but it does have an actual impact on those users. There's probably, from the utilities perspective, there will be somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 a year impact, and we would look at that at the end of the year with the model and see what that does. From the general fund side, it would have a much greater impact because of the cost that it would be to the Parks Department and the irrigation needs that they have in the parks. And so what we're proposing is to put the exemption back in so that there would be all the landscape meters at schools, colleges, parks, and other city-owned facilities would be billed at the 0 to 89 rate. So that would be at the $4.46 rate rather than, so nothing would be at the $9.98 for the winter, and then at the $4.66 and $10.43 for the summer rate. So with that, that's what this ordinance amendment is proposing, to put that exemption back in for them to take that burden off of them.
This is just for municipal water.
It's for the schools and the city-owned facilities.
University as well.
Correct.
Correct.
Citizens would not get this break.
Right, and they didn't before. It was really just for intended for those facilities that were of a public use already.
I do have one thing I would like to add to this, or at least get your opinion on. I was out at Fairmount Cemetery, which is a city-owned facility, and it's been 6 or 8 months ago. And there was a guy out there spraying water in the cemetery that he gets out of the aquifer out at Brown's Pool. He was not using city water. He was not going to a city meter, but he was in fact buying water out of the aquifer in North San Angelo and spraying it on Fairmount Cemetery. If we're going to go and start giving some cuts to cities and municipalities, we need to do away with this buying water out of the aquifers. Rick Bacon, the county commissioner on the north end, is already looking at maybe desalinating some salt water out there because that aquifer is dropping at an alarming rate. And there's tens of thousands of people in the northern part of Tom Green County that have no other water and no other source of water. So if we're going to give the city a break and not charge them for everything they do, I'd like to have the caveat of putting something in there that we don't allow them to buy, that they have to use city water and not be able to buy out of aquifers.
I'll check on that, but I would doubt very seriously if the city bought water we have sources of our own. So there may be someone who had a grave there and they were personally watering theirs, but.
No, it was a local guy that sells water, and he was out there spraying around the end, and I've sat there and watched him. And I wondered, why in the world are we using water that does not come out of a fire hydrant?
I'll get the facts on that and get it to you, but we don't buy water from other sources. If we needed to fill something up, we've got wells of our own we could go fill it up with. We wouldn't go buy it, but I'll check into it and get you the information on that.
Roger.
I'm Roger Havlock, Senior Manager for Parks. I spoke with the staff at Cemetery just moments ago, and they said the only people that come in are private individuals that come with small tanks to water their own individual graves. Back during when we were in a severe drought in 2010, 2011, we literally had to take out the water faucets that were available for use in that area. They've not been put back, and it was because people were using those faucets to not only water out there, but to take the water onto their own property. And so that's the type of thing we had to deal with back then. But I just got off the phone with them. That's not city staff doing that. That's individuals.
Yeah, he was an individual out there with a pickup and a trailer, and I see it all over. I see it out there loading up all the time.
Correct.
Now we can't stop from buying the water from an aquifer and selling it, but I think if we're going to give a cut rate to the city, I think that the city ought to be using their own water and not using someone else's, because that is becoming a very. Rick Bacon is fighting this right now in Northern. It's becoming a serious problem.
And the city is not using someone else's water.
Okay.
And I do want to point out, you mentioned cut rate to the city, and we're talking about the school, the colleges, and the city as well. There's a difference between the residential or privately owned property that's for their own use, the public watering, and that's why we had that previously in the previous rate, is because it is for the use of the public, and they can come into our parks and use it as well. So that's why we had it before. It just didn't make it into this into the new rate, and we just want to adjust it back to where it used to be.
I would like to add, too, if you don't mind, this also includes 2 Pro Management, who handles Santa Fe Golf Course, has 36 acres of land to cover. San Angelo Soccer Association has 33 acres off of Glenna. Western Little League. There's a lot of different entities besides the schools and universities and parks.
Those are all city-owned properties that we use, so we'll just
that
leave
would
it at
go in
that.
there, yeah.
I wish our citizens could get the same break. Okay, I need a motion from somebody.
I move to approve as presented.
Now I need a second.
Second.
Do we have a second? Now I need to know if there's any public comment. Yes, sir.
Steve Hampton. I feel very strongly that we're not in a drought situation. Though drought and flood have been the history of this community, we're not currently in a drought situation. And we went up on the water because of the drought situation. We are no longer in that drought situation, therefore we should go back down to the way it was before. This is another tax as has been pointed out many times by the mayor, this is a usage, all right, but if you start charging for usage, then you need to go down on something else. I know you're trying to do it a little bit with the equalization on maintaining the tax rate, but you still need to go down on something else. Or get your appraisal board under control. I know that you contribute to membership on that board, along with the county and the school. There has to be some kind of agreement to what is fair and what you can't just keep going up and up and up. And you're trying to get people to come to this community. You're trying to get business to come to this community. And if you're out of the ballpark on your rates, they're not coming, no matter how much. You're not going to talk them into it. And so I would encourage you to consider equalizing these back to the way we were before the drought made them go up. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? I will call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. I believe I'm going to say nay until I can get some exact language in there that protects these aquifers. So put me down as a nay, make a 6-1 out of it. All right, let's move on now to F, which is a second reading and consideration of an ordinance amending the 2015-2016 budget for grants and capital projects. Morgan, you are on, ma'am.
Thank y'all. What's before you today is second reading. It's on regular agenda because we had one edit to it. What was before you last time was a total of $97,412. Today, what's before you is $117,412 at a net revenue under expenditures of $20,000. That is just this new item added to Ports to Plains sponsorship for the council contribution of $20,000 to be funded from the general fund balance.
That's
Move
all
to
of it?
approve as presented.
The previous 6 items were before you last time. The Bosque, that grant was approved by the council July 12th. The revenue and expense for that were 100% funded by the NOAA grant. And the WIC program, another item completely grant funded. State office building improvements, we had some one-time revenue come in and wanted to capture that for improvements. Stormwater equipment replacement, we had an insurance claim that is completely funded by that. And then under our HUD program, the home buyers assistance of $6,000. So the one item to you today that's new is the Ports to Plains sponsorship.
Do I have a motion to approve from Charlotte? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Do I have a second from Lane? Do I have any further council discussion on this item? Yes, Marty? Then I'll get
Why are
Bill.
we spending $20,000?
It's part of a sponsorship that we have that's coming up for an event here in September. The city of San Angelo is sponsoring the event. We are having entities coming in from throughout the country and also from Canada and Mexico. It's an event I think that we had a few years back, but one that the city is sponsoring at this point. So this is for the promotion.
Host. We're the host.
Correct.
This year.
So I guess I got a concern about it when we're trying to find $37,000 for a matching grant, and we're spending $20,000 for this.
To help bring in the speakers for the event that are going to be talking to us about the I-14 and I-27 and what we as a city can do to make these things a reality or happen sooner, like the bypass that took place in Big Spring that people thought would take 20 years, took a 3-year progress to get the loop around. Ports to Plains is the largest lobbyist to find these monies for highway funds to bring the project through here. Each year, a city hosts the Ports to Plains group to have their annual conference and have the speakers to talk about this, and it's always not knowing what the registration is going to be to offset the cost for it coming.
So could we end up not spending that $20,000 if the registration's high enough? Or
Well, I know that we do take a look at once the event is concluded. We do look at budgets, and there's a certain amount, of course, that carries over for future event. With Porch to Plains, I think that amount is usually around $60,000. So we would take a look at that and see if there are any funds left over, aside from the $60,000 that carries over, and we could determine how that would be used then to hold on to it.
Bill?
Can you go back to the previous page, please? What is this state office building improvements?
We recently had a reimbursement from the Texas Health and Human Services Commission for work that had been done on their suite some years ago. And so we were in receipt of those funds in fiscal year 16. That was unbudgeted revenue, and we do have some urgent needs at that building, so we needed to capture that revenue and invest it in improvements at the state office building.
Okay, thank you. I just needed an explanation. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Any other questions from council? Public comment on this item? Has been a motion made that we accept this as presented. It has been seconded. I will call for the motion or vote for the vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay.
Nay.
Put a 5-2 on that, please.
Thank you.
We are ready now for follow-up and administrative issues. Consider items discussed in executive closed session as needed. There is one item that we do need to have approved. This is a motion to retain Pekar and Abramson PC related to pending or contemplated litigation up to $50,000. This is to hire an attorney to assist us in one of the problems that we have. I do need motion to approve.
So move.
I need a second.
Second.
Further comments, further questions from council? Public comment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It passes 7-0. Consideration of approving various board nominations. Design and Historic Review Commission, Stephen McLaughlin, SMD 4, to a first term ending September 2018. Consider appointments to the Concho River Watermaster Advisory Committee, Daniel Valenzuela, City Manager, Bill Riley, Director of Water Utilities, and Stephen Brown as a consultant from the Upper Colorado River Authority to terms ending in August 2018. I will entertain a motion to approve these.
So move.
Harry, do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have a second from Lucy? Do I have questions? Public comment? All in favor of the two items, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Put a 6-1 on that one, please, sir. Announcements and consideration of future agenda items. I'll start with you, Bill. Do you have anything you need to say or anything you need on the furthering agenda?
As I expressed, I'm kind of concerned about the makeup of the planning commission. I think there's too many people from the real estate industry on the board presently, and I'd like that reviewed.
Okay. If you would, Brian and Teresa, check into the bylaws in that and see if there's anything we're doing that we need to change, please. Anything else, sir?
I received a copy of the applications that were on file from Brian, and the information is not up to date. It doesn't cover their present addresses or their present employment, things like that. I think when somebody joins a board or they are reappointed, they should put it in a present application.
Let's check our bylaws on that and clean this up, please.
There is nothing currently in the ordinances or the bylaws that require anybody to update their application with any kind of reappointment. So that'd be something we'd have to add by a first and second reading, or at least by bylaws, if it's a direction that council wants.
If you would check bylaws and check to see if they have to be of different occupations or if there could be several. If you would check on that, yes.
Yes, sir. We will review the planning particularly.
We'll get you some answers on that, Bill.
Okay, thank
Marty,
you.
do you have anything, sir?
I just have two things. If staff could tell us when they're looking at, I understand on North Monroe between Woodlawn and Forest Park that hasn't ever been repaired. It's not open yet from rains. What the status of getting that street reopened, and then I was under the impression that FEMA had redone their flood track or whatever that is in Green Acres and over in there. Could we check on that?
That kind of slipped under the radar again, didn't it?
Yeah. That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Thomas?
Just comment to some of the citizens in single-member District 3. Daniel and I will be visiting with citizens on Avenue P next week to talk about the flooding issue. So we want people to know about that. If there are any of them listening on TV, we've been trying to contact a number of them, and they've got disconnected phones. If they'll contact the city to update that information, we'd be glad to get out there as soon as we can.
I do want to add to that as well. We've been trying to really get the phone numbers to call these individuals as well. I hope Monday and Tuesday, both Harry and I will be knocking on doors if we can't get a hold of these individuals. So just a warning, if you see us coming, please open the door and talk to us. We really need to talk to you, so thank you.
Ms. Lucy?
Nothing, sir.
Lane?
Nothing at the time.
Charlotte?
Yes, I need an update, a status report on the Sherwood Way project by the state as to what we had announced to the people way back in October, November would be starting hopefully in March, and here it is August, and still nothing has started on that project yet. That's with reference to right there in front of Lowe's and Walmart. Also, I'd like the priority sheet that Shane Kelton has on the streets that we had named that had the highest priority for repair that we had put into the several million-dollar project to update, repair, or fix as needed. I need that information submitted and sent over to Mike Boyd, the chair of the Water Board, because they're interested in it, in looking at making a plan for their recommendations. They needed to know what those priorities were. Also, that's it for now. I need to wait on something else.
Well, I have nothing, and I need nothing but a motion to adjourn.
We adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. It's 1:43, and this meeting is over.